Chapter 28-39. I understand what you're thinking. Night Sorrow nodded and continued, just like staying in the lower realm, your strength definitely won't improve as fast as ascending to the divine realm. Going to the eternal supreme realm definitely has an advantage in terms of strength improvement. At this point, Night Sorrow looked at Yi Xiaokei with a serious expression and said, but in reality, going to the eternal supreme realm, even the divine king is an ant-like existence that can be smacked to death at any time. Only after advancing to the juggernaut level will you have a certain level of combat ability. The ones who decide the real battle are the supremes. And those who surpass the supremes. If you insist on going with the strength of a god lord, you'll actually be a burden. You won't even have the chance to leave the divine realm cities. Father, I understand. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Yi Xiaokei suddenly understood something. That was, if it was suitable for a god lord to go, Night Sorrow might have already left for the eternal supreme realm. No, he had to wait until the divine king level. After all, Night Sorrow advancing to the divine king level was equivalent to an ordinary cultivator advancing to the juggernaut level. It's good that you understand. Don't worry, we'll have the chance to go in the future. Night Sorrow smiled and patted Yi Xiaokei's shoulder. Then, he looked at Lin Piaomiao and said, in fact, even if we go with the divine king level, it's already a lot earlier. Normally, we should wait until the juggernaut level before going. It's okay. I believe that after advancing to the divine king level, your strength won't be inferior to an ordinary juggernaut. Lin Piaomiao smiled and continued, my husband, you've occupied the divine feather list and high divine list. Now, you're ranked second on the divine sovereign list. I wonder if you'll be able to take first place this time. I wonder if divine Lord Li Yuan will come, but the so-called top isn't too important. Night Sorrow said with a smile and continued, let's go and watch the battle between the divine feather and high god levels. The battle between the divine lords will be held at the end. Okay. Let's go. But husband, I heard that the top of the divine realm's rankings will be enveloped by the divine realm's providence. You need to pay attention to this matter. Lin Piaomiao said with a serious expression. He only found out about this after he had awakened his sovereign bloodline. Good. If there is a chance, I will try my best to fight for it. Night Sorrow nodded and brought his family to the battleground to watch the battle between the feather gods. After a few days of battles, nothing much happened. In the end, a feather god from Dominator Qin Yin's residence took first place. Although the competition wasn't all that interesting, Night Sorrow saw quite a few familiar faces, including Hegemon Voiceless. While chatting with Hegemon Voiceless Sound could tell that Night Sorrow was on the verge of breaking through to the Divine King level. She gifted him with a cultivation manual of the Divine King. In the God world, such insights were generally not divulged to outsiders. For Hegemon Voiceless to give them to him was a huge favor to Night Sorrow. As for the battles between high gods, they were much more exciting than those at the feather god level. This was especially true after advancing to the quarterfinals. Everyone moved to the central arena. Under the watchful eyes of the many sovereigns, the contestants seemed to be on steroids. Every single one of them used their most powerful techniques, and the battles were extremely intense. Even Yi Shan's blood was boiling as he watched the first 3 battles of the top 8. Although the 6 contestants didn't have the ability he had when he was at the high god level, the battle intent they erupted with wasn't inferior at all. Lin Piaomiao and Yi Xiaokei also watched with great interest. However, when the 4th contestant went up, Night Sorrow, Lin Piaomiao, and Yi Xiaokei's expressions all changed. Because the contestant who went up was actually Yi Xiaoluo, whom they missed dearly. The current Yi Xiaoluo's cultivation realm wasn't bad. He had already reached the peak of High God, which was the half-step Divine Lord level. His aura was also very stable. Clearly, his strength wasn't bad. But what made the 3 of them change their expressions was that Yi Xiaoluo had actually shaved his head. That bald appearance showed that he had joined a Buddhist sect. This was something that Night Sorrow couldn't accept. Night Sorrow's attitude towards the heavenly Buddha zone had always been to keep a respectful distance from it. Now that he saw Yi Xiaoluo's appearance, he immediately stood up from the spectator stand and shouted, "Xiao Luo." He originally wanted to shout something, but didn't say it out loud. When Yi Xiaoluo heard Night Sorrow's shout, he looked at Night Sorrow like everyone else, but didn't respond at all. "Xiaoluo, what's wrong with you?" How could Night Sorrow accept that his son, Yi Xiaoluo, didn't recognize him after meeting him? He immediately shouted, "You don't even recognize your father." Father? Du Yi is a monk. Once he's done with his past, he doesn't have parents. Yi Xiaoluo said with a deep expression. No. Xiaoluo's situation is very wrong. It seems like he's been enlightened by someone. Lin Piaomiao immediately said after seeing Yi Xiaoluo's situation. The Yi family valued friendship the most. Even if Yi Xiaoluo had joined a Buddhist sect, it was impossible for him to not recognize his parents. Who enlightened Xiaoluo? Night Sorrow's heart ached when he saw Yi Xiaoluo's appearance. He immediately flew up to the arena. The referee for this match was a high-level divine lord from the Tianai Dominator Manor. He knew that Night Sorrow had a good relationship with the Tianai Dominator, so he didn't chase him away. At this moment, a monk wearing a kasaya chuckled as he flew up from below the arena. He cupped his hands at Night Sorrow and said, "I'm Lu Yuan. Greetings to Divine Lord Night Sorrow. Du Yi is my disciple. I don't care if you are Divine Lord Lu Yuan or someone else. Let Xiaoluo return to normal immediately. Otherwise, I'll kill you." Night Sorrow roared furiously when Yi Xiaoluo had been enlightened to the point that he didn't even recognize his parents. "Night Sorrow, are you provoking the Heavenly Buddha Dominator's area?" One of the divine kings in the Heavenly Buddha Dominator's area immediately roared when he saw Night Sorrow roar. This roar was mixed with the Heavenly Buddha voice, so it was no different from a divine king's spiritual attack. Provoking the Heavenly Buddha Dominator's area? You enlightened my son to the point that he can't even recognize a ghost. How dare you say that I, Night Sorrow, am provoking you? Night Sorrow, who had fused his spiritual soul with the divine king in the Heavenly Buddha Dominator's area, roared softly with a dragon's roar. Let me tell you, including the Heavenly Buddha Dominator, if you don't give Night Sorrow an explanation today, there will come a day when I will destroy your Heavenly Buddha Dominator's area. He didn't look at the divine king in the Heavenly Buddha Dominator's area when he roared these words. Instead, he glared directly at the Heavenly Buddha Dominator. Junior, you are too arrogant. The Heavenly Buddha Dominator chuckled at Night Sorrow's roar. Yi Xiaoluo has an affinity with the Buddha. Why are you so stubborn? I'm no match for you now, but don't let anyone in the Heavenly Buddha Dominator's area meet me in a battle between divine lords. As for Xiaoluo, I'm taking him away. Night Sorrow looked at the Heavenly Buddha Dominator and said coldly. Then, he took Yi Xiaoluo under his control and sent him into the Clear Sky Pagoda. He used the power of merit to cleanse his spiritual soul. Chapter 2840. Although the Blessed Buddha ruler had a good reputation, Night Sorrow couldn't tolerate this at all. In the territory ruled by the Heavenly Buddhas, it was fine to convert others, but it was definitely not going to work on his family members. You can take him away, but if you threaten him, take him back. The Blessed Buddha ruler didn't say anything, but the divine king Lu Yuan looked at Night Sorrow unwillingly. To him, being able to convert Yi Xiaoluo was like having an extra life. Now that Yi Xiaoluo was saved by his father, Night Sorrow, in front of all the important figures in the God realm, if he tried to stop him, he would lose all face in the Blessed Buddha ruler's territory. Thus, he couldn't directly stop him. Although he was a Buddhist, he couldn't hide his anger. So what if I threaten you? After hearing the divine king Lu Yuan's words, Night Sorrow immediately took the samsara halberd from his back and smashed it on the ground. Seeing Night Sorrow's reaction, ruler Tianai didn't say anything. Other than the Blessed Buddha ruler, the other rulers naturally didn't say anything either. As for the Dark Moon ruler and the All-Heaven ruler, they hoped that Night Sorrow and Lu Yuan would both suffer. It would be best if they completely fell out with the Blessed Buddha ruler's territory. However, just as Night Sorrow was about to make a move, Long Wushu suddenly stood up and flew between the two of them. He tried to persuade them, the two of you. Please listen to me. We are all friends, so there's no need to make a big fuss. This matter is Lu Yuan's fault. He shouldn't have converted the Yi family's disciple. Lu Yuan, apologize and let it go. All along, the relationship between the dragons and the blessed Buddha ruler's territory had been very good. His appearance had the right to speak. Senior Long, you shouldn't interfere in this matter. I won't tolerate anyone who tries to convert my son. Long Wushu was Long Tianqing's father, and he had helped Knight Sorrow before. If it was a normal matter, he would definitely give face. However, under these circumstances, Knight Sorrow didn't want to settle things peacefully. His family being converted had already crossed his bottom line. He couldn't tolerate it at all. You don't have to interfere in this matter. At this moment, the blessed Buddha deity transmitted a message to Long Wushu. His tone was calm and composed. Hearing Heavenly Buddha's voice transmission, Long Wushu asked, "You don't usually look like this. What happened? How could he still allow his subordinates to recklessly convert Yishang's family? Don't tell me you don't know how great he will be in the future. Everything is predestined. This is the karma between Lu Yuan and Yishang. They are bound to fight. When their battle is over, you will understand the reason." Facing Long Wushu's question, the blessed Buddha deity used a voice transmission to reply. "What do you mean? Why are you being so mysterious?" Hearing the words of the Buddha deity, Long Wushu asked curiously. The blessed Buddha ruler smiled and said, "Everything has its fate. Let's just wait and see." "All right." Long Wushu wasn't too satisfied with the communication between the two of them. However, he didn't say anything. He continued to transmit a message to Knight Sorrow. "Knight Sorrow. Just follow your heart for today's matter. Okay. Today, I will have a good talk with Monk Lu Yuan." After Long Wushu communicated with the Buddha ruler, he didn't continue to persuade him. The other factions didn't have a close relationship with them, so they couldn't speak. Everyone was just watching the show. "Do you really want to fight?" Seeing Knight Sorrow's anger, a smile appeared on Lord God Lu Yuan's face. He glanced at the Buddha ruler and saw that the Buddha ruler didn't have any intention of speaking. Lord God Lu Yuan's arrogance was different from the ordinary people of the Buddha kingdom. "Don't waste time. Let's fight." Yi Xiaoluo has admitted defeat in the final round of the God Ancestor battle. It just so happens that the two of us can fight for everyone here. It's also a warm-up for the God Ancestor battle. Knight Sorrow, who was holding the Samsara halberd, was bursting with fighting spirit. Although he looked like a God Ancestor, the strength of his God territory was at the level of the Divine King. And he wasn't an ordinary Divine King. However, Lord God Lu Yuan wasn't afraid of Knight Sorrow. He smiled coldly and said, "In that case, Lu Yuan won't hold back. You evil monk, show me all the tricks you have. What kind of ability are you to attack a child?" Knight Sorrow couldn't suppress his anger after seeing his family being controlled by someone else. He released his God territory and enveloped Lu Yuan's God territory. Being enveloped by Yishang's divine domain, Divine King Lu Yuan revealed a cold smile that was not quite the same as a monk's. He said, "Then I'll let you experience what it means to be number one on the Divine Lord list." After saying that, Lord God Lu Yuan released his golden God territory. The Buddha's light looked golden and dazzling. It was similar to ordinary Buddha's light, but it gave people a very strange feeling. It seemed to contain a trace of power that didn't belong to the divine world. At the same time, the Divine King Lu Yuan immediately used the Buddhist lion roar on Knight Sorrow. After he roared, not only was the sound deafening, but a huge golden lion also appeared in the void. After the golden lion appeared, it immediately pounced at Knight Sorrow with an astonishing might. A probing attack with such might. As expected of the number one on the God Ancestor list. The move that Lord God Lu Yuan roared out had almost reached the level of the middle-level Divine King. If it was an ordinary Divine Lord, he would probably be scared out of his wits by the roar. However, Knight Sorrow wasn't too concerned about this move. He roared out soft dragon roar in response. This time, Night Sorrow was inspired by Lu Yuan's soft dragon roar. He roared out a huge heavenly dragon that collided with the lion roared out by his opponent. When the lion roar and dragon roar collided, the might was simply astounding. Fortunately, the arena was personally set up by Sovereign Tianai. Otherwise, it might have been shattered. As for the audience, even though they were isolated by the array, they could still feel the might of the dragon roar and lion roar. Such might, and it's a battle between divine lords? It's not inferior to the two top-level divine kings. Long Wushu, who had retreated outside the arena to watch the battle, couldn't help but sigh. At this moment, he had a premonition that if Night Sorrow used the sovereign divine weapon in his hands, even he might not be a match for him. One must know that he was a super expert who was already famous in the divine world. His strength was second only to the 7 sovereigns. Thinking of this, Long Wushu gave himself a shock. He thought to himself, if Night Sorrow were to train a little more, wouldn't he become the 8th person in the divine world? The speed of his strength improvement is simply heaven-defying. Chapter 2841. Although Sir God Lu Yuan's divine soul power was very strong and he was very proficient in using the lion's roar, Night Sorrow's 2 divine souls fused together. It was simply a heaven-defying existence and was not inferior to any divine king in the divine world. The dragon's roar successfully subdued the lion's roar, and the remaining waves rushed towards Sir God Lu Yuan. Good move. Faced with the remaining waves of the dragon's roar, Sir God Lu Yuan snorted with a fake smile and completely dispersed the remaining waves with a roar. After a simple recovery, he took out a shining demon subduing pestle from his spatial artifact. He placed it in front of him and silently recited the incantation. After a moment, a total of 5 divine kings appeared in front of Sir God Lu Yuan. The faces of these 8 divine king-level figures could not be seen clearly, but their aura was definitely at the level of a divine king. However, they existed in the form of shadows and were not the real divine king. Obviously, they were souls that had been purified by Lu Yuan. You evil monk, you really do a lot of harm. I wonder which 5 divine kings have fallen into your trap. Looking at the 5 divine king souls, Night Sorrow immediately knew that these people were definitely killed by Lu Yuan personally. Moreover, when the other party's divine soul was about to escape, it was purified by a divine weapon. This kind of move was almost as evil as the dark creatures. Before Night Sorrow took action, he was completely angry because of his son, Yi Xiaoluo. At this moment, he felt that Sir God Lu Yuan was completely strange. He could not help but wonder why there was such an evil Sir God in the area ruled by the heavenly Buddha. This was completely different from their attitude of standing aloof from worldly affairs. Benefactor Yi, you are wrong. I have purified 5 evil people. Sir God Lu Yuan realized that after he summoned the 5 divine king souls, the expressions of the various big shots around him changed. He immediately explained. Just as he finished his explanation, he roared, 5 kings overcoming disaster technique. After he roared, the 5 divine king souls immediately burst out with radiance and their aura soared. They were about the same as an ordinary lower divine king. After the 5 souls' aura soared, they immediately pounced on Night Sorrow like malicious ghosts. Why is it similar to the extraterrestrial demon's move? Night Sorrow could not help but be puzzled after seeing Sir God Lu Yuan's move. He immediately opened the eye of the sea serpent dragon and observed the 5 souls in front of him. Yi Shan's expression immediately changed when he saw them. The 5 souls in front of him were not golden god kings. They were 5 god king level extraterrestrial demons. However, they did not have the aura of an extraterrestrial demon. Disguise. When he saw that divine monarch Fate had actually summoned 5 otherworldly demons, Night Sorrow no longer held back. He used the power of virtue to create 5 dragons and pounced on the 5 divine king extraterrestrial demons. Although not all the dragons of virtue created by Night Sorrow were at the level of the divine king, the power of virtue was the nemesis of the extraterrestrial demons. Although the 5 dragons could not devour the 5 divine king extraterrestrial demons, they could resist their attacks. For a moment, the situation was in a stalemate. You've been attacking continuously. It's time for you to take my attack. Knight Sorrow had originally planned to give Sir God Le Yuan 3 chances to attack. However, after discovering the extraterrestrial demons, he did not plan to give him another chance. He roared and used the Samsara halberd to attack with the forbidden reincarnation spear. After the taboo reincarnation spear was upgraded, it would cause a lot of pressure to ordinary high-level god kings. However, faced with this attack, Sir God Le Yuan laughed and took out a wooden fish from his space Dharma artifact. After this wooden fish was taken out, it immediately emitted a heart-palpitating golden light. The power of this golden light was unbelievably strong. It actually swallowed all the halberd light of the Samsara halberd. After the halberd light of the Samsara halberd's attack was swallowed, only the power of close combat was left. Le Yuan waved the demon-subduing pestle in his hand and blocked it. After blocking Knight Sorrow's attack, Le Yuan revealed a smile as if he had everything under control. He said, "Looks like you can't do anything to me without using the sovereign divine weapon. Is that so? Then you can try." Knight Sorrow knew that Le Yuan was trying to provoke him. However, he did not want to use the sovereign divine weapon when fighting against a cultivator of the same level. He felt that it would be an insult to himself. Gentle Dragon Roar. After his attack was blocked by Le Yuan, Knight Sorrow realized that Le Yuan was not simple. He seemed to have a lot of divine weapons and secret treasures. This time, Knight Sorrow directly used the Dragon Roar to attack the 5 souls of the extraterrestrial demons in the void. The 5 souls of the extraterrestrial demons in the void were in a stalemate with the power of merit. Knight Sorrow suddenly used the Gentle Dragon Roar and immediately changed the battle situation, scattering one of the souls. The soul of the extraterrestrial demon that exploded was completely black in Knight Sorrow's eyes. However, it was gold in the eyes of others. Even ordinary sovereigns could not see the true color of these extraterrestrial demons. You've gone too far. After Knight Sorrow destroyed one of the extraterrestrial demon souls, the array formation was also damaged. Sir God Le Yuan immediately became angry. He took out another secret treasure from his spatial artifact. This secret treasure was a damaged small bowl. The small bowl carried a trace of Sovereign Divine Weapons aura. This Sovereign Divine Weapons aura contained obvious Buddhist power. Buddhist Sovereign Divine Weapons aura? Originally, Knight Sorrow thought that Sir God Le Yuan was a spy sent by the extraterrestrial demons to the divine world. His methods basically came from the extraterrestrial demons. Now, he understood. Not only was Sir God Le Yuan proficient in some of the extraterrestrial demons' methods, he also mastered many of the Buddhist kingdom's methods. As such, he was even more difficult to deal with. You still dare to be absent-minded in the middle of a battle. Benefactor Knight, you have to be careful. Just as Yi Shang was pondering how to proceed, Celestial Lord Le Yuan threw the small bowl in his hand at him. When Sir God Le Yuan threw the small bowl, it looked like a fight between ordinary people. However, the pressure it gave off was close to that of a sovereign divine weapon. Although Sir God Le Yuan's God essence power, soul power, and physical strength were weaker than Knight Sorrow's, he could use a large number of secret treasures to fight. Moreover, his face was filled with confidence. It was obvious that he had other trump cards. Lord Knight Sorrow, let me deal with this broken bowl. It's a damaged sovereign divine weapon. Knight Sorrow was still thinking about how to deal with this method when little Tian, who had been attacked by the Clear Sky Pagoda, transmitted a message to him. He wanted to use Tian Yunbao's power to stop the small bowl's attack. No need. If it was an opponent of the same level, Knight Sorrow would never use his sovereign divine weapon without using a true sovereign divine weapon. Facing the small bowl's attack that was close to the sovereign divine weapon, he immediately used the Treastrimsa battle mystic technique and dodged it with the dragon swimming steps. Chapter 2842. During the fight, Knight Sorrow was in a sorry state. However, he gritted his teeth and didn't use the Tianyun Bao. This was his dignity as a cultivator. Divine Lord Luyuan could use the damaged sovereign divine weapon when he wasn't strong enough. In Knight Sorrow's eyes, this was an ability. He had to rely on his own strength to break it. If he had to use the Tianyun Bao against a divine lord, his Dao heart wouldn't be able to protect himself. Humph. If you don't use the sovereign divine weapon, you're definitely not my match. After gaining the upper hand, Divine Lord Luyuan immediately smiled arrogantly. He was completely different from an ordinary monk. That's not necessarily true. Knight Sorrow, who was fighting against the small bull, was clearly at a disadvantage and suffered some injuries. During the fight, he kept thinking of countermeasures. He wanted to understand why he was suppressed by the small bull in front of him. After thinking for a while, Knight Sorrow felt that it was because he didn't understand enough of the sovereign divine weapon's power. During the fight, he used the sea serpent's eye to observe the rules of the small bull's attack. After understanding the rules contained within, the fight gradually became easier. It wasn't as difficult as before. Oh no. He seems to be able to see through the divine weapon's attack. I can't let him have an easy time. Seeing that Knight Sorrow was gradually adapting to the small bull's attack, Divine Lord Luyuan immediately waved his demon-subduing pestle and summoned the remaining 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons. They charged at Knight Sorrow together. In this way, the pressure Yi Shan faced was even greater. Good. Good. Facing Divine Lord Luyuan's attacks, Knight Sorrow's anger was completely ignited. Knight Sorrow couldn't remember how long it had been since he was suppressed by a cultivator of the same cultivation level. At this moment, he exploded. All the power in his body was completely mobilized. His divine soul also completely fused together. While dodging the small bull's attack, he waved his Samsara heavenly halberd and stabbed at the 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demon souls. Puff! Puff! After 4 consecutive noises, the souls of the 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial devils were all blown up. Knight Sorrow, who had completely erupted, was like an ancient god of war, unstoppable. He actually forced out his strongest battle intent. Sir God Luyuan said hatefully in his heart when he saw Knight Sorrow's behavior. Originally, he thought that Knight Sorrow would choose to retreat in the face of such a terrifying attack. At that time, he would continue to use his methods to make Knight Sorrow suffer even more. However, he did not expect Knight Sorrow to erupt with strength that almost surpassed the Divine Kings under such circumstances. That sort of horrifying strength was what the Divine Lord level Seer Yuan was completely unable to contend with. One force breaks all techniques. In an instant, Knight Sorrow had a further epiphany. It was as if his entire being had gone berserk, entering a whole new realm. His combat strength caused all the Divine King present to tremble in fear. Some of the Divine King had brought themselves into this battle, only to discover that they couldn't even withstand a single blow from Knight Sorrow. This made them despair. What sort of state is Knight Sorrow in? Even the Dark Moon ruler was flabbergasted when he saw Knight Sorrow's combat strength. Knight Sorrow's strength had increased by so much just by relying on the increase of his battle intent. This was very puzzling. His state seems to be called invincible battle intent. Only those who are invincible in the world can comprehend it. The illustrious ruler said solemnly, apparently in a bad mood. Invincible battle intent. Invincible in the same realm? Then when he becomes a ruler, will he surpass all of us here? The Dark Moon ruler asked gloomily. He was worried about the potential Knight Sorrow had displayed. After all, in the past few days, he had targeted Yi Shang several times. Invincible in the same realm? Only if he has the ability to become a ruler will he be able to pose a threat to us. The illustrious ruler messaged the Dark Moon ruler, his expression grim. You mean to say that we should just kill him? The Dark Moon ruler replied. Given his talent, if he becomes a Divine King, he'll be difficult to deal with. What I mean is that we should act as quickly as possible. The illustrious ruler transmitted, his voice brimming with killing intent. After saying this, she added, just like I did in the past, we should nip all threats in the bud. But He Gemin Tianai has chosen to protect him. If we act rashly, we might cause unnecessary trouble. The Dark Moon ruler's interest was piqued when he heard the illustrious ruler's words. However, when he thought of Hegemen Tni and Hegemen Clearsound's warnings, he didn't dare to act. If we act against Night Sorrow by ourselves, Tni and Clearsound will seek revenge. However, if we contact a few more rulers, the two of them probably won't dare to act rashly. The illustrious ruler continued, I've heard that the ruler of all heaven and Night Sorrow aren't on good terms either. We can ally with him. The Seven Stars ruler's territory is adjacent to the Immortal Dominion, and there's constant friction between them. We can also persuade the Seven Stars ruler. Good idea. You go persuade the Seven Stars ruler, and I'll talk to all heaven. The Dark Moon ruler's territory was adjacent to the Immortal Dominion. If Night Sorrow continued to grow, the Dark Moon ruler's territory would be the first to be affected. He didn't hesitate to contact All Heaven. The All Heaven ruler had just lost his true body to Night Sorrow and was furious. Even with the threat of Hegemen Tni, he still agreed to personally deal with Night Sorrow. As for the illustrious ruler, he went to contact the Seven Stars ruler with a cold expression. Night Sorrow was like a god descending upon the mortal world. After comprehending the invincible battle intent, his comprehension abilities had improved. He quickly comprehended the laws contained within the small bowl. It seems like I've bumped into the Divine King's barrier. After comprehending the broken sovereign artifact's laws, Night Sorrow wasn't at a disadvantage against it. Furthermore, when he used Samsara to attack, he also added in these laws, which made Divine Lord Lu Yuan very uncomfortable. There's no other way. I can only use my final trump card. Seeing that the broken sovereign artifact couldn't suppress Night Sorrow, Divine Lord Lu Yuan roared in his heart and took out an exquisite jade talisman from his spatial artifact. When the jade talisman was taken out, it immediately emitted a tranquil glow. This soft, verdant glow seemed to be able to calm everything in the world. Even Night Sorrow, who was in the middle of battle, felt his fighting spirit drop after being enveloped by this soft light. When he saw the subtle change in Night Sorrow's eyes, Divine Lord Lu Yuan smiled faintly and tossed the jade talisman out. Not good. This is a sovereign jade talisman. After the jade talisman was tossed out, it rapidly exploded in the air. The enormous attack power was all directed at Night Sorrow. Even some of the sovereigns present couldn't react in time. The attack contained a boundless amount of black gas. This sovereign jade talisman had obviously come from a sovereign of the extraterrestrial demons. Lu Yuan, who had unleashed this attack, had a resolute look in his eyes and a smile on his face. Chapter 2843. How dare you use the extraterrestrial demon sovereign's talisman against a god realm cultivator in Tni City? Hegemen Tni of the ethereal mountain was the first to sense the talisman's aura. He immediately rose to his feet in anger and prepared to attack. Hegemen Buddha said, let's wait and see. After all, Night Sorrow also has a sovereign weapon. Hegemen Buddha, what's wrong with you today? Are you going to protect your subordinate even though he used a taboo technique? Hegemen Tni wasn't happy to hear this. He felt that Tni was being too protective of his subordinate. Hegemen Buddha chuckled. I'm not protecting my subordinate. Their battle is a battle of karmic luck. It's best if we don't interfere. A battle of karmic luck? What kind of battle of karmic luck? Hegemen Voiceless Sound, who'd been silent, immediately asked. Night Sorrow is the strongest divine sovereign of the god realm, while Lu Yuan is the strongest divine king of the ethereal mountain. Their battle is a battle of karmic luck between the god realm and the ethereal mountain. Hegemen Buddha explained, then continued, the most critical moment has arrived. We can only wait and see. How could your subordinate be the strongest divine sovereign of the ethereal mountain? Hegemen Buddha's words made many people understand why Lu Yuan was so strong. He was almost on par with Night Sorrow. However, Hegemen Tni wasn't willing to accept this. He felt that Hegemen Buddha was going overboard. After all, Divine Sovereign Lu Yuan had learned many of Buddha's abilities. Back then, he hid his extraterrestrial demon aura and snuck into the Buddha kingdom to cultivate. After discovering him, I made a few calculations. I discovered that he and Night Sorrow were key figures in the battle between the God realm and the ethereal mountain. That's why I didn't expose him. I was waiting for today's battle. Hegemen Buddha continued to explain. His divination abilities were ranked among the top 3 in the entire God realm. Although his explanation was concise, all the hegemons present understood what was going on. Suddenly, the way they looked at the battlefield changed. Lu Yuan is the strongest divine sovereign of the ethereal mountain. No wonder he's so strong. No matter what, I can't lose today's battle. Deva Buddha's voice wasn't loud, but it was loud enough for everyone to hear. Even Night Sorrow, who was in the middle of the battle, heard the words, causing him to unleash an undefeatable battle intent and a strong determination to win the battle. Come on. So what if you have a sovereign's divine talisman? In the face of Divine Lord Lu Yuan's ruler's rune, Night Sorrow, who originally wanted to take the attack himself, took out his heavenly cloud bow and shot out a heavenly cloud arrow to block the attack. Night Sorrow wouldn't have taken out the Tianyun bow if the other party wasn't from the ethereal mountain sect. Even if it was a sovereign-grade talisman, he was prepared to receive it personally. However, this matter concerned the fate of the celestial realm. He didn't want any accidents to happen. Boom! After the heavenly cloud arrow was shot, it directly collided with the divine talisman. However, it didn't completely neutralize the attack in front of him. It seems that this is a true attack from a sovereign. It's not easy to deal with. 5 elements arrow formation. After the heavenly cloud arrow didn't have the desired effect, Night Sorrow immediately shot out a large number of 5 elements virtuous arrows to form the 5 elements arrow formation to block Deva Buddha's attack. He knew that the creatures of the ethereal mountain sect were still afraid of the power of virtue. Old thing, so you discovered my identity long ago. So what? Today, I'll win this battle for the ethereal mountain sect. The virtuous 5 elemental arrow formation that Night Sorrow shot out was very powerful and was the bane of dark creatures. However, it didn't completely deplete the sovereign-grade talisman's attack. Deva Buddha realized that Night Sorrow's strongest attack wasn't able to deplete the divine talisman's attack. He immediately used the remaining energy of the attack to attack Night Sorrow's body. You want to use the sovereign-grade talisman to harm Lord Night Sorrow? Have you asked for my permission? Night Sorrow's strongest attack was only able to delay the divine talisman's attack temporarily and deplete less than 30% of its power. When the divine talisman attacked again, Little Tian controlled the Tianyun Bao to meet it. Tianyun Bao, who had also erupted with his own strength, immediately blocked the attack. However, the current Little Tian had yet to reach the level of the Divine King. After forcefully controlling Tianyun Bao to unleash a sovereign-grade attack, he immediately fell into a deep slumber. Little Tian, how are you? Night Sorrow, who hadn't expected Little Tian to unleash such a powerful attack, immediately sent a message after realizing that he had been injured. However, the reply he received was a long silence. I didn't think that he would be able to neutralize the sovereign's attack without the sovereign's help. Not simple. The 7-star sovereign, who had been silent all this time, sighed emotionally when he saw Night Sorrow use Tianyun Bao to neutralize the sovereign-grade talisman's attack. At this point, the hegemon sent him a mental message. What do you think of the matter I mentioned? I don't want to become enemies with the entire God realm. Can't you see that Night Sorrow represents the God realm's providence? The 7-star sovereign replied without even thinking. Humph. Upon hearing this, the sovereign coldly snorted. She glanced at the sovereign of all heaven and the sovereign of the dark moon. She felt that the 3 of them working together to deal with Night Sorrow wasn't a bad choice. After all, no matter how strong he was only a divine lord. If the 3 sovereigns worked together to deal with the divine king, they would definitely be able to obliterate him. What? Aren't you happy that Night Sorrow neutralized the sovereign-grade talisman's attack? Hegemon Tianai suddenly snorted. Hegemon Majestic Hegemon snorted, and Hegemon majestic Hegemon immediately noticed. No. Hegemon Tianai, you've misunderstood. The sovereign felt like he had fallen into an icy cavern when he was noticed by Hegemon Tianai, so he politely explained. That's for the best. Hegemon Tianai glanced at the sovereign, then turned his head to watch the battle. He had personally set up this place. Although it had been baptized by a clash of sovereigns, the damage wasn't very serious. This was a completely miraculous feat. The other sovereigns could clearly sense just how powerful Hegemon Tianai was. Kill. I'll definitely kill you today. When Divine Lord Lu Yuan saw Night Sorrow use the sovereign's body to block the Divine Talisman's attack, a savage look appeared on his face. Moreover, he had already exposed his identity and knew that it would be very difficult for him to escape unscathed. He was prepared to put his life on the line. If you want to kill me, you won't be able to do so unless you bring out some true skill. Prepare to die. At this moment, Night Sorrow felt like he was representing the God realm in battle. In fact, his invincible will to do battle increased even further. Using the Samsara halberd, he unleashed the most tyrannical attack in history, the forbidden Samsara spear. This attack didn't just contain the power of virtue, it also contained the origin energy of the God realm. He was prepared to instantly kill his opponent. He was going to use the providence of the God realm. Chapter 28:44. Very strong. You live up to your name as Sir God of Merit. However, it's impossible for you to kill me with such an attack. Sir God Lu Yuan revealed an unprecedented ferocious expression as he faced Night Sorrow's taboo reincarnation spear. He recovered his original appearance and transformed into an extraterrestrial demon. After transforming into an extraterrestrial demon, he roared coldly, "Remember my name, Sky Splitter Demon, you talk too much. Die." At this moment, Yi Shang, who had already attacked, interrupted him. To Yi Shang, there was only one name for the other party, and that was the extraterrestrial demon. Real Heavenly Demon Mark, activate. Faced with Night Sorrow's fatal attack, Sky Splitter Demon suddenly roared and activated the mark energy on his body. There was a buzzing sound, and even the surrounding void vibrated for a moment. Then, he threw a punch at Night Sorrow's attack crazily. From Night Sorrow's point of view, the power of the punch was close to the attack of a master. It was extremely terrifying. Rumble. After a collision, both parties retreated to the edge of the arena. Real Heavenly Demon Mark. After Sky Splitter Demon activated Sky Splitter Demon Mark, his power increased by almost 10 times. This surprised Night Sorrow. While Night Sorrow was surprised, the rest of the people at the scene were also confused. Basically, they didn't know what it was. You don't know about Real Heavenly Demon Sovereign? How ignorant. Seeing that no one knew what Real Heavenly Demon Mark was, Sky Splitter Demon instantly revealed a mocking expression. I don't care if you're Real Heavenly Demon Sovereign or Real Heavenly Demon Sovereign. If you plot against the realm of gods, I'll kill you. Many people at the scene sighed with emotion because of Real Heavenly Demon Sovereign's name. There hadn't been a legend of a sovereign in the realm of gods for a long time. Night Sorrow roared fearlessly and attacked Sky Splitter Demon again. This time, he performed Reincarnation Spear again. However, this time, he focused on Reincarnation Attribute. At the same time, he used Merit Dragon Locking Formation to bind Sky Splitter Demon so that he had nowhere to hide. Real Heavenly Demon Mark. The Sky-Slaying Demon, who was trapped in a sealed space, did not panic. He once again activated the True Sky Demon imprint in his hand. The True Heavenly Devil imprint came from the True Heavenly Devil Sovereign. The power it could unleash was immeasurable. After the Heaven-Slaying Demon unleashed its power once again, the Heaven-Slaying Demon's body emitted an endless amount of black light. After the black light burst out, it once again faced Night Sorrow's attack. This time, the collision between the two of them ended in a tie again. Why is the utmost exalted imprint only this powerful? The Heaven-Slaying Demon was astonished by this result. He felt that the paragon's imprint should be able to unleash an attack that surpassed that of a sovereign. That was why he had kept it as a last resort. Now that he realized that he couldn't do anything to Night Sorrow, he couldn't understand it. Your so-called paragon's mark should have been damaged, right? I don't believe that it can protect you forever. Night Sorrow, whose attack was once again blocked by the true heavenly demon imprint, had no intention of retreating. He wielded the heavenly halberd of Samsara and charged towards the heaven-slaying demon once again. At this point in the battle, Night Sorrow decided not to use his fancy spear techniques anymore. Instead, he directly engaged in close combat with his opponent. The heaven-slaying demon had already used up most of his moves. The true heavenly demon imprint was the only life-saving talisman left. In the face of Night Sorrow's attack, the weaker heaven-slaying demon instantly became flustered. As for the true heavenly demon imprint, after helping him time and time again, it finally exhausted its energy and completely disappeared. The moment the true heavenly demon imprint disappeared, the heaven-slaying demon's expression changed. He didn't expect that his final trump card would be unable to withstand Night Sorrow's attack and lose its effect so quickly. What's wrong? You don't have the confidence to fight anymore after losing your trump card? Night Sorrow asked coldly when he saw the heaven-slaying demon's reaction. In this battle, he represented the realm of the gods. It involved the issue of fate. Now that he had completely gained the upper hand, he instantly felt more relaxed. While the heaven-slaying demon was in despair, he attributed his failure to the true heavenly demon imprint. He thought to himself that if it wasn't for the true heavenly demon imprint, which wasn't as strong as the sovereign said, he wouldn't have used up the sovereign's jade talisman so easily. If he had used the jade talisman in a sneak attack, he would have had a chance of winning. However, since things had developed to this point, it was futile to say anything. In the following period of time, although the heaven-slaying demon tried his best to resist, he was still brutally defeated by Night Sorrow. After killing the heaven-slaying demon, Night Sorrow successfully obtained the power of virtue that the heaven-slaying demon transformed into. The power of virtue that the heaven-slaying demon transformed into was equivalent to 5 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons. This was the perfect supplement for Night Sorrow. Moreover, after killing the heaven-slaying demon, Night Sorrow even received a slight reward from the realm of the gods. This was an unexpected gain. Yi Shang, you represented the godly monarchs of the godly realm and defeated the number 1 godly monarch of the ethereal mountain sect. This is a cause for celebration. I will give you 1 chance to enter the Skysplit Tower. You won't have to participate in the battle. Sovereign Tianai said as soon as the battle ended. He also ordered people to set up a table and chairs for Night Sorrow. After Night Sorrow sat down next to Sovereign Tianai, the Buddhist sovereign smiled and said, "Reality has proven that you are the one destined for the God realm. I hope you won't blame me for what happened today." "Huh, Sovereign Buddha, what are you saying? If you wanted to, you could have killed the heaven-slaying demon at any time, but you brought him to me. There must be a reason for you to do so." Night Sorrow understands. Night Sorrow replied with a smile. The Buddha sovereign took out a sarira from his spatial artifact. This is the sarira of an eminent monk of the Buddhist kingdom. You might be able to break through to the Divine King level soon. Take it. Thank you, Sovereign Buddha. Night Sorrow didn't stand on ceremony with the Buddha sovereign's gift. He reached out and accepted it. Sovereign Tianai continued, Night Sorrow has just fought for the God realm and defeated the strongest divine lord of the ethereal mountain. Shouldn't you all express your gratitude? After all, even if Night Sorrow is strong, the God realm is strong. I will give Night Sorrow the song, Swallow the Mountains and Rivers. As soon as Sovereign Tianai finished speaking, Sovereign Clearsound took out a guqin and began to play it in front of everyone. Her zither music was as dense as a drizzle, but it gave people a soul-stirring feeling. Night Sorrow had only heard a few notes when he was completely immersed in it, entering a special state of mind. As for the others present, they all envied Night Sorrow. Sovereign Tianai sees him as the future of the God realm, and Sovereign Clearsound is playing the guqin for him. Not even the other sovereigns have the right to enjoy such treatment. Night Sorrow is truly blessed. As for the other sovereigns, they weren't on good terms with Night Sorrow, but they couldn't possibly stand against the god realm. Chapter 28:45. Good Song. I can clearly sense that I'm one step closer to the divine king realm. I've even comprehended a trace of the sovereign's laws. Night Sorrow listened to the unvoiced sovereign's song from beginning to end, immersing himself in it for a long time. It took him quite a while to recover. At this point, the remaining 7-star sovereigns, Dark Moon sovereigns, and All Heaven sovereigns all presented their gifts, regardless of whether they were willing or not. Night Sorrow wanted to refuse, but Sovereign Tianai stopped him. On this day, Sovereign Tianai seemed to want to protect Night Sorrow in front of the other sovereigns, letting them feel how important Night Sorrow was to him. To everyone's surprise, the mighty Hegemon was unexpectedly generous. He had actually given away a complete God-King level cultivation technique. Night Sorrow didn't have much of an impression of this sovereign, but he still thanked him. However, as he exchanged pleasantries with the sovereign, Night Sorrow felt that something was amiss. As someone who cultivated the power of virtue, he could sense a hint of enmity from the sovereign. There shouldn't be any enmity between us, right? Could it be that she really likes to kill geniuses like the legends say? Although Night Sorrow could sense the sovereign's enmity, he didn't show it on his face. In his heart, however, he began to ponder the reason. The first reason he could think of was that he was extremely jealous and couldn't stand others being stronger than her. When she discovered a genius appearing in the divine world, she immediately chose to kill him. At the same time, he recalled that the sovereign's people had colluded with the extraterrestrial demons. In his heart, he began to wonder if the sovereign had some sort of relationship with the extraterrestrial demons. These words had too great of an impact. Without proof, no one would believe them. Night Sorrow secretly noted this down and prepared to investigate it when he had the chance. After the sovereigns finished presenting their gifts, Sovereign Tianai smiled and said, "Night Sorrow, your time is precious. Go to Skysplit Tower first. As for your family, I'll help take care of them." He was actually prepared to let Night Sorrow enter Skysplit Tower first. This was an enormous amount of faith. Hearing this, all the sovereigns present could sense how important Sovereign Tianai was to Night Sorrow. The Dark Moon sovereigns and All Heaven sovereigns, who had been itching to make a move, hesitated, whether or not to attack Night Sorrow. "Sister Xian, why don't you stay with Xiao Ke and I go to Skysplit Tower first?" Hearing Sovereign Tianai's words, Night Sorrow turned to Lin Piaomiao. "Yes. With Hegemon Tianai's protection, you don't need to worry about me and Xiao Ke. Moreover, I don't even need to participate in the competition. I only need to persuade little Luo when he encounters an opponent that he can't handle. Don't worry." Lin zzz. At this time, Yi Shan looked at Yi Xiao Ke and said, "You haven't been in the Divine Lord realm for too long and you are still a lower Divine Lord. You don't need to force yourself too much in this battle. If you encounter a strong enemy, you must know when to advance or retreat." "Yes. Father, this time, your son is following you to see the world. I never thought I'd be in the limelight." Yi Xiao Ke nodded obediently. Before he came here, he wanted to see the world with his parents. He didn't think that he would be able to shine in the battle of the gods, which was highly regarded by the entire god realm as a low-level god sovereign. Because his expectations were low, he wouldn't fight to the death. You have to control yourself." Yi Chang spoke a few more words with Yi Xiao Ke before summoning Yi Xiaoluo from his spatial artifact. He rose to his feet and gazed at the numerous sovereigns present. "May I know which sovereign can help my son recover? Yi Chang will be eternally grateful for your help." He'd used his second soul to try to help Yi Xiaoluo recover, but it hadn't been very effective. He could only place his hopes on the sovereigns in front of him. Before the other sovereigns could speak, Sovereign Tianai waved his hand. The heavenly Buddha ruler laughed and waved his hand. "The extraterrestrial demon controlling him has already died in battle. He'll recover on his own. It's not a serious problem. It's like a strange cultivation. So that's how it is." "I understand." Night Sorrow relaxed somewhat upon hearing Sovereign Tianya's explanation. He sent Yi Xiaoluo back into the clear sky pagoda. Seeing that Night Sorrow was done, Sovereign Tianyi laughed. Let's go. I'll take you to the Skysplit Tower. The group arrived at the base of the Skysplit Tower. Hejem and Tianyi said, the situation within the Skysplit Tower is very simple. You just have to charge upwards. Charge up to as many levels as you can. The higher you go, the more you'll be able to acquire. Once you reach the limit and acquire what you need, the Skysplit Tower's Paragon will send you out. Are you ready? I'm ready. Night Sorrow glanced at the Skysplit Tower, then nodded. The Skysplit Tower is a 5-sided pagoda. Each time it opens, 5 people can enter. This time, however, it's open for Night Sorrow. This is an extra entry, it won't take up any of the spots. Night Sorrow, you can choose any door you like. After speaking, Sovereign Tianyi opened the Skysplit Tower. Upon seeing that Night Sorrow could choose any door he wanted, many of the people present were so envious that their eyes turned green. However, Sovereign Tianyi didn't give them any chance. He didn't even mention Night Sorrow's family. After Night Sorrow entered, he completely shut the door. After entering the Skysplit Tower, a misty space appeared before Night Sorrow's eyes. Moments later, a body of energy appeared and attacked Night Sorrow. After dodging a few times, Night Sorrow didn't sense anything special about it. He punched out, shattering the body of energy. The shattered body of energy transformed back into energy, which then flowed towards a corner of the space. Moments later, a flight of stairs appeared. Going up the stairs, Yi Shan went straight to the next floor. As soon as he entered, 2 more bodies of energy appeared and attacked Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow once more destroyed these bodies of energy with a single punch. Just like that, he continued to climb upwards. After 10 or so floors, the energy bodies guarding the floors began to display various attributes. Given Night Sorrow's understanding of attributes, dealing with these energy bodies wasn't a problem at all. In a single day, he reached the 33rd floor. This speed was already a record for the Skysplit Tower. Naturally, his rating was a light blue, which represented perfection. The baptism he received was also unprecedented. Luckily, Sovereign Tianyi and the others hadn't paid attention to Night Sorrow and had instead gone back to host the Tianyi Assembly of Heroes. Otherwise, they definitely would have been completely stunned. Night Sorrow didn't know about this. He sat quietly on the 33rd floor for a while, then rose and hurried towards the 34th floor. Night Sorrow continued to stroll through the next few floors. To him, the trials of the Skysplit Tower were nothing at all. Chapter 2846. The 64th level was equivalent to the second 31st level, but the pressure was much greater than the first 31st level. However, Night Sorrow's understanding of attributes had already widened the gap between him and an ordinary divine lord. Moreover, he had experienced a similar test on the sky cloud staircase. Therefore, although he had expended some effort, he still passed without any suspense. After the 65th and 66th levels, even though Night Sorrow had surpassed all divine lords since ancient times, he still expended a lot of energy. After passing the 66th level, Night Sorrow felt that if he continued, he would run out of energy. However, just as Night Sorrow was about to continue, Skysplit Tower suddenly rewarded him with energy, replenishing his energy. After absorbing the energy, he felt that not only was his energy restored, but it was also stronger than when he was at his peak. After recovering quickly, Night Sorrow sat on the 66th level and pondered for a moment, recalling his experience on the 66th level. After organizing his thoughts, Night Sorrow's understanding of attributes had improved. He was also one step closer to the Divine King's realm. It seems like breaking through the Divine King can be put on the agenda. Night Sorrow was in a good mood and continued climbing to the 67th level. The 67th level was different from the previous levels. The first 33 levels were gray, but now they were pure white. It was a completely different atmosphere. After stepping on the stairs, Night Sorrow knew what was going on. It was still pressure, but it was pressure that targeted his divine soul. I see. After discovering the difference, Night Sorrow continued climbing. Now that he had two divine souls, his combined divine soul strength should have surpassed that of any divine lord in history. Moreover, it was very likely that no one would be able to surpass him in the future. The pressure on his divine soul was nothing to scoff at. However, as the real climb began, even Night Sorrow felt immense pressure. In the past, the Skysplit Tower was always climbed by 5 people, and many people paid attention to it. At this moment, Night Sorrow was like a lonely traveler, following his heart as he moved forward. 91. 92. After climbing all the way to the 97th level, Night Sorrow once again felt the pressure of the 64th level. Although the spiritual energy is powerful, it still consumes a lot of energy. Night Sorrow struggled to climb to the 98th step. He felt that the consumption of his divine soul was particularly great. Ever since he started climbing, this was the first time he had felt such great pressure. As he continued to ascend, Night Sorrow felt an unprecedented consumption of his divine soul, but he gritted his teeth and persevered. He thought to himself, there is no one who does not suffer, no one who does not face difficulties. I have to challenge my own limits. When he was halfway up the stairs, Night Sorrow realized that he couldn't walk any further, because the energy suppressing his soul was too strong. It wrapped around his head in divine sense C, forming a restriction, and his soul was like a blade. Night Sorrow's soul power changed its state, turning into a soul blade that cut in all directions, causing the boundless pressure to be unable to form a state of binding him, and he continued to move forward. Even so, he still felt an enormous pressure. With every step he took, the suppression grew stronger. This completely aroused Night Sorrow's tenacity. He threw his head back and let out a long roar, completely erupting. He even used the power of virtue. In the end, he successfully climbed to the 99th step. After successfully ascending to the 99th step, Night Sorrow was in a good mood, even though his divine soul was almost completely exhausted. He took out the heavenly samsara halberd and smashed it into the ground. Halberd in hand, he stood in place. At this moment, all 5 windows of the Skysplit Tower lit up with a golden light. Night Sorrow wasn't too sure what this dazzling light represented. However, Hegemon Tni, who was presiding over the duel, felt his divine soul tremble. He sighed. Peerless talent. Not bad at all. I just don't know if you have the ability to challenge the final step. Did something happen to Night Sorrow? Hegemon Clear Sound, who had noticed the change in Hegemon Tni's expression, immediately sent him a message. I can only say that Night Sorrow won't bestow upon me in the future. Hegemon Tni sighed. In truth, he had fainted when climbing to the 99th step. Night Sorrow might very well have surpassed him in terms of talent. However, he found it hard to accept. No cultivator was willing to admit that others were stronger than them, let alone the number 1 person in the god realm, Hegemon Tni. Then I understand. Hegemon Clear Sound smiled faintly when she heard Hegemon Tni's message, but she didn't say anything else. Congratulations. You've become the 2nd cultivator to reach the 99th step. The first one was already unconscious when he reached here, so you're the first one to reach here. Just as Hegemon Clear Sound and Hegemon Tni were conversing, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Night Sorrow. Are you the Paragon Tower spirit? Asked Night Sorrow, holding the halberd of samsara in his hand. In truth, he knew very well that it couldn't be anyone else in a place like this. That's right, it's me. Would you like to know your own talent evaluation? Asked the Paragon Tower spirit. Of course, please enlighten me. Said Night Sorrow, intrigued. Do you know my evaluation of talent? There's no need to evaluate anything below the 50th step. The 60th to 69th step is excellent, the 70th to 79th step is mortal, the 80th to 89th step is earth grade, the 90th to 98th step is heaven grade, and the 99th step is peerless. As for the 100th step, At the 100th step, the Paragon Tower spirit paused, then asked, "Do you still have the strength to attempt the 100th step?" "I can give it a try." "How do I do it?" replied Night Sorrow confidently. "I didn't expect you to be so much stronger than he Gemini and I." The Paragon Tower spirit sighed, then continued, "You can try walking all the way to the 99th step. This is a path that no one has ever walked before." Then, the tower spirit venerable moved and made way for him. He bowed slightly and made an inviting gesture. "All right. I'll give it a try." Yi Shang's heart surged with battle intent as he replied. He had a natural desire to conquer heights that had never been conquered before. Buzz! Night Sorrow had just walked up the steps when a wave of energy broke through his divine domain and descended upon his divine sea. What followed after was endless darkness. His surroundings were pitch black, and his body was surrounded by the smell of soil. Night Sorrow felt like he was being buried alive. Suffocation, pain, and helplessness attacked him continuously. He couldn't use any divine essence energy, nor could he use any divine soul power. He could only silently endure this helplessness. Helplessness? "No, that's not me, Night Sorrow. I, Night Sorrow, am the divine king of the immortal world. I will never compromise." In the midst of despair, Night Sorrow suddenly roared and tore apart all restraints. Chapter 2847. When the black-scaled lion pounced, Night Sorrow felt as if he had returned to the past. He raised the black spear with his right arm and stabbed it into the black-scaled lion's abdomen, passing through its back and killing it. After dealing with the black-scaled lion, the scene in front of him changed. Scenes of his cultivation flashed before his eyes. In an instant, Night Sorrow felt as if he had gone through the entire process of cultivation again. He felt as if he had ascended 90,000 miles. Then, he suddenly woke up. He found himself at the top of the Skysplit Tower. "You are the first cultivator to appear here. How does it feel to stand in the clouds and look down on everything?" After Night Sorrow stood at the peak, the venerable tower spirit asked with a smile. Even he Gemini and I had only climbed to the 99th level. Now, he had reached the 100th. "I don't feel anything. Everything is calm," Yi Shang calmly replied as he glanced at the tower spirit venerable. At this moment, his state of mind was in harmony with all things. He didn't have many thoughts, unlike those who had climbed to the top. There was no uncontrollable joy, nor was there any shock. He was completely indifferent. "Your state of mind is 1 in 10,000. Night Sorrow's reply was simple, but the venerable tower spirit's comment wasn't simple. Even he Gemini and I hadn't been as calm as Night Sorrow back then. Now, his state of mind was close to invincible. "Perhaps it's because I'm about to embark on an extremely difficult path," Night Sorrow said calmly as he looked at the clouds in the sky. To him, reaching the top of the Skysplit Tower wasn't enough. He wanted to stand at the top of the eternal sovereign world and solve all the problems in the God realm. That was a danger that no one in the God realm could see, but it could come at any time. It was for this reason that his cultivation had risen so quickly. "You're still young. No one can estimate how far you can go in the future." The venerable tower spirit didn't understand Night Sorrow's state of mind. He continued, "Now that you've reached the top, I can give you some rewards. For example, I can help you upgrade the grade of your divine weapon." "Upgrade the grade of my divine weapon? My divine artifact should be very difficult to upgrade, right?" Night Sorrow immediately handed over the reincarnation halberd. The reincarnation halberd was already close to becoming a dominator artifact. If it was upgraded further, it would become a true dominator artifact. Night Sorrow felt that it was impossible. After receiving the Samsara heavenly halberd, the tower spirit venerate smiled awkwardly and said, "It is indeed very difficult to improve it. However, I can get rid of the impurities in it. Your divine artifact is made of decent materials, but your technique isn't perfect. You can improve it greatly." "Good. Then I'll have to trouble you." Night Sorrow thanked him. The Samsara heavenly halberd was a partner that had accompanied him as he grew up. The feelings that Knight Sorrow had for it were not something that Tian Yun Bao and the others could compare with. He naturally hoped that the Samsara halberd could advance quickly. It's all right. This is the reward you deserve. I'm already sorry that I can't help you upgrade the grade of your divine artifact. As he spoke, the Tower Spirit Venerable used the power of the sky-reaching tower to remove the impurities from the Samsara halberd. Because it wasn't being reforged, and because the sky-reaching tower had time rules, Knight Sorrow left the sky-reaching tower only half a month later. By then, the battle for the divine sovereign position had already ended. Although Yi Xiaoke had done his best, his strength was still lacking. In the end, he'd placed fifth. He wasn't very satisfied with this result, but Knight Sorrow and Lin Piaomiao both felt that it wasn't bad. After that, the family of three watched the battle for the Divine King in peace. After the battle for the Divine King, the 5 spots to enter the sky-reaching tower were decided. Naturally, none of these spots belonged to the Immortal Dominion. Thus, the 3 members of the Yi family weren't very interested in how high they'd climb. After bidding farewell to Hegemen Tianai and Hegemen Clear Sound, they left Tinya's territory and returned to the Immortal Dominion. Father, I heard that those with good talent can climb to the 90th level of the sky-reaching tower. How many levels have you reached? Yi Xiaoke asked curiously on the way back. No weaker than others. When Knight Sorrow had left the sky-reaching tower, the tower spirit had asked him to keep it a secret. Thus, he'd answered vaguely and didn't reveal the secret of the 100th level. Upon hearing this, Yi Xiaoke naturally understood what it meant. He smiled and gave Knight Sorrow a thumbs up. Father, you're truly domineering and mighty. You have to work hard too. Participate next time and fight for a chance to enter the sky-reaching tower. Lin Piaomiao stood to the side and began teaching Yi Xiaoke. Being taught by his mother, Yi Xiaoke smiled and immediately changed the topic. Father, how's Brother Xiaoluo's recovery? There aren't any changes at the moment, but since the Heavenly Buddha said so, there shouldn't be any problems. Knight Sorrow replied to Yi Xiaoke, then entered the Clear Sky Pagoda to check on Yi Xiaoluo's condition. There weren't any problems with his body, but he'd fallen into a deep slumber. It shouldn't take long for him to recover. After Xiaoluo recovers, his strength should increase quite a bit. The 2 of you should participate together next time. Knight Sorrow left the Clear Sky Pagoda and said to Yi Xiaoke. From the looks of it, Yi Xiaoke and Yi Xiaoluo's talents were among the better in the family. Yi Shang was very much looking forward to their achievements. However, he didn't want to express it personally, for fear of putting too much pressure on his 2 sons. Okay. Father. What's your next plan? Do you want to break through the Divine King's realm in peace? Yi Xiaoke replied respectfully and asked. I'll go to the 9th Heaven Temple to look for the Heavenly Phoenix's 1000 transformation elixir and save everyone who's trapped. Knight Sorrow replied. He was ready to go to the 9th Heaven Temple to look for the recipe for the Heavenly Phoenix's 1000 transformation elixir and the last ingredient needed for the Heaven and Earth concealment array. However, he hadn't mentioned the Heaven and Earth concealment array to Yi Xiaoke yet. While the father and son were talking, the family of 3 quickly returned to the Domain Master's manor. After arriving at the Domain Master's manor, Knight Sorrow accompanied his family to dinner. Then, he found an empty courtyard and practiced his spear with the Samsara halberd. After arriving at the divine world, Knight Sorrow was facing more and more pressure. The opportunities to practice his spear in peace were getting fewer and fewer. Now that he wielded the Samsara halberd, which had been completely purified, there was a great improvement. After practicing for a while, Knight Sorrow was sure that the Samsara halberd was now the best weapon among the half-step sovereigns. Phew. It seems that the Divine King's realm is not far away. In the process of practicing his spear, Knight Sorrow realized that he was getting closer and closer to the Divine King's realm. At this moment, the carefree feeling in his heart completely exploded. Like the wind, like a dragon. Samsara. Forbidden. Like the wind, like the dragon's spear. Chapter 28:48. This wind dragon spear was something that Night Sorrow had come up with based on the attribute changes in the heaven-reaching pagoda and the changes in the reincarnation heavenly halberd. Although the name was a little tacky, it was much stronger than the forbidden reincarnation spear. The beginning attribute and the reincarnation attribute. One was like the wind, silently moistening things, while the other was like a dragon, soaring in the 9 heavens. Good spear. The Fire Phoenix King, who was watching Night Sorrow practice his spear in the clear sky pagoda, couldn't help but praise him when she realized that he had developed a spear technique that could crush the Divine King. The Dragon Sparrow King was actually very surprised. He felt that if Night Sorrow continued to improve at this rate, he would soon be able to fight against a ruler. However, after thinking for a while, he smiled and said, "The spear technique is good, but the name is still a little lacking. Why don't we call it the 9 Heavens Reincarnation Spear?" 9 Heavens Reincarnation Spear? It doesn't quite fit, but let's call it that. When Yi Shang heard the Dragon Sparrow King's words, he smiled and said indifferently. He named the spear technique the 9 Heavens Reincarnation Spear. "Lord Night Sorrow, you said that you were going to the 9 Heavens Temple with me and the Fire Phoenix King?" The Dragon Sparrow King continued to ask. He had never heard of the 9 Heavens Temple, but he understood that it was definitely an incredible place. "Yes, I will naturally bring you guys along, but there might be unpredictable dangers there. I always felt that it wasn't simple, so I've been holding back this trip until now," Night Sorrow said. Xiao Tianxian had once reached the ruler level in the 9 Heavens Temple, which meant that the opportunities there should have been taken away, so the dangers there shouldn't be too great. However, Night Sorrow had a bad feeling. This feeling was indescribable, like a premonition. After chatting with the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King for a while, Night Sorrow said, "Something doesn't feel right. Let me upgrade Tianyun Bao again before we set off." In the following period, Night Sorrow used up all his resources to raise Little Tian from the Divine Lord level to the Divine King level. After Little Tian stabilized at the Divine King's level and was barely able to resist a sovereign's attack, Night Sorrow announced to his family that he was heading to 9 Heavens Temple. "Brother Night Sorrow, it's fine if you can't get it. Don't force yourself. Brother, the way things are now isn't bad." Mo Qianqian, who no longer had a human form, understood that Night Sorrow had taken the risk for them. Otherwise, with Night Sorrow's potential, he could have naturally advanced to the Divine King if he had stayed in the mansion to cultivate. Haha. "Brother, if I don't help you recover, Night Sorrow, will have a hard time untangling the knot in my heart. Don't be so courteous." Seeing Mo Yuqian in such a state, Night Sorrow said with heartache. However, thinking that he might be able to treat the other party, his mood immediately became much better. At this time, Long Tianqing also walked over and slowly opened her mouth to say, "Night Sorrow, I'll bring Big Brother Yuan and go with you." "Senior Tianqing, you can't do that. I have a bad feeling about this trip. Although I'm not too sure what we'll face, it'll definitely be very difficult." Night Sorrow opened his mouth and said, rejecting Long Tianqing's suggestion. There was one thing that he did not say. He kept feeling that he would encounter a sovereign-level opponent on this trip. Otherwise, he would not have those feelings of panic in his heart. A sovereign is a sovereign. As long as I break through to the Divine King level, I might be able to fight. People grow in adversity and erupt in despair. It's time to start the final battle in the divine world. I believe that my destiny will let me hold on. When he was about to enter the immortal divine realm, Night Sorrow thought fiercely. He was prepared to enter seclusion completely at this time and advance to the Divine King level. Then, he would cultivate a clone and head to the eternal supreme world. Therefore, this might very well be his main body's last time leaving the immortal divine realm. "Lord Night Sorrow, where is the 9 Heavens God Temple?" After leaving the immortal divine realm, Dragon Sparrow King asked curiously. "In the prestigious sovereign's territory." Night Sorrow opened his mouth to explain. Right at this time, a hint of foreboding suddenly flashed across his heart. But looking around, he did not discover anything. Night Sorrow opened his mouth to ask, "Fire Phoenix King, did you notice anything just now? I have a feeling of being followed. I didn't discover anything. Fire Phoenix King answered truthfully. Then things are even more not simple. If I didn't sense wrongly, then there's a sovereign following us. Night Sorrow opened his mouth to say a sentence and immediately increased his speed to the limit, using the profound heaven-roaming dragon step to rush into the distance non-stop. Furthermore, in several cities, he continuously used teleportation formations. After more than a month of shuttling, that feeling of being followed slowly dissipated. Shook it off. We have to seize this opportunity to head to the Nine Heavens God Temple. The irritating feeling of being followed disappeared and Night Sorrow immediately rushed toward the Nine Heavens sacred palace in the ruler's region. Xiao Tianxian had only told him the location, but the others did not know. Night Sorrow was not too worried that someone had set an ambush there. After rushing to the valley where the Nine Heavens God Temple was located, Night Sorrow directly entered the Nine Heavens God Temple. After Night Sorrow's figure completely disappeared, the prestigious Sovereign, All Heaven Sovereign, and Dark Moon Sovereign appeared one after another. The three of them looked at each other, and the prestigious Sovereign said, "If this matter was done secretly, Sovereign T and I definitely wouldn't have discovered it. What do you all think? Do you want to attack with me?" "Attack? I want to kill him with my own hands," All Heaven Sovereign said viciously. He was still brooding over the fact that Night Sorrow had destroyed his doppelganger. As for Dark Moon Sovereign, he smiled and said, "If I didn't want to attack him, I wouldn't have used a trick to conceal myself from his senses." Hee hee. Good. Then let's do our best to kill Night Sorrow in the Nine Heavens God Temple. The prestigious Sovereign laughed sinisterly and said, "But after we kill him, how are we going to split the spoils? If I'm not mistaken, he has 2 sovereign artifacts on him this time. I want a sovereign artifact. If it weren't for my methods, he would have discovered that we were following him long ago. We wouldn't have had this opportunity." Before the All Heaven Sovereign could speak, the Dark Moon Sovereign spoke first. He felt that attacking in the Nine Heavens God Temple was beyond Sovereign Tinya's control, and it would be easier to hide the truth. Comparatively speaking, he should be the one to take the credit. "I also want a sovereign artifact. As long as we can get a sovereign artifact, we can join forces and deal with Sovereign T and I. We won't have to fear him at all. If the 3 of us join forces, we should be able to deal with Sovereign T and I. But if Sovereign Voiceless helps us, our chances of victory will be much lower. What I mean is that after we kill Night Sorrow and get the sovereign artifact, we immediately go to Sovereign Voiceless territory and kill her. As long as we can kill her, each of you will get a sovereign artifact." "I don't want it," the prestigious Sovereign said coldly. "What? You still want to kill Sovereign Voiceless?" Chapter 2849. If the 3 of them worked together, killing Night Sorrow would be as easy as crushing an ant. However, killing Hegemon Voiceless Sound would cause a huge commotion. It was very likely that Hegemon T and I would come to their aid while they were killing Hegemon Voiceless Sound. At that time, the 3 of them would have to face Hegemon T and I, Skysplit Tower, and Hegemon Voiceless Sound. Even with Tianyun Bao and the Sky Cloud Staircase, they wouldn't necessarily be able to win. "What? Are you still Hegemons? Are you scared out of your wits over such a small matter?" Hegemon Dark Moon and All Heaven saw the reactions of Hegemon Dark Moon and Hegemon All Heaven. He sneered, "If we didn't have the guts, we wouldn't have done what we're doing. As long as we kill Night Sorrow, Hegemon T and I and Voiceless Sound will definitely stand up for him. After all, they've already said that they won't let any Hegemons attack him. What you say isn't without reason. However, killing a Hegemon for no good reason would be a huge blow to the interests of the God Realm. If we really kill Hegemon Voiceless Sound, it would be no different from betraying the God Realm." Hegemon Dark Moon thought for a moment, then continued, "I'm not afraid of being cursed. However, I don't want to implicate the entire Shishu clan. All Heaven, what do you think?" Hegemon Dark Moon was extremely displeased to see Hegemon Voiceless Sound attack. Her idea was to stir up the waters of the god realm as much as possible. However, Hegemon Dark Moon was clearly very conservative. He only wanted the Hegemon artifact, not Hegemon Voiceless Sound. Thus, she wanted to use Hegemon All Heaven to persuade Hegemon Dark Moon. Upon hearing Hegemon Dark Moon's question, Hegemon All Heaven laughed vulgarly. I do want to attack Voiceless Sound, but that's only after I get the Hegemon artifact. What do you think? Hegemon Dark Moon. You're right. Let's kill Night Sorrow and get the Hegemon artifact. Then we'll figure out how to split it and what to do next. Hegemon Dark Moon said. Suddenly, she had another idea. Should we wait for him here, or go in and kill him? Hegemon Dark Moon asked cautiously. There had been a ruler who had fallen in the Nine Heavens Shrine. He felt that it was an ominous place and did not want to go in. When the sovereign heard this, he chuckled and said, if it weren't for the fact that we wanted to kill him inside, we would have been able to fool everyone. Why don't we just make a move on the road? Let's go in. All right. I agree with you on this matter. Ruler Dark Moon nodded. His desire for a sovereign artifact had reached its peak. The truth was that the sovereign Lord of All Heaven's desire for Tian Yun Bao was just as strong. After his clone had been destroyed by Night Sorrow, the sovereign Lord of All Heaven had been tempted. Now that the opportunity had presented itself, he didn't want anything to go wrong. Therefore, he wanted to be the first to enter the Nine Heavens God Temple. However, the three rulers of Tao did not sense any presence of Night Sorrow after entering the Nine Heavens Sacred Palace. What's going on? Even if he left, it's not like we can't sense his aura. The All Heaven ruler said anxiously when he couldn't find Night Sorrow's aura. As a ruler, can't you be a little more calm? The Sovereign Lord said disdainfully when he saw the All Heaven ruler's reaction. Everything has a cause and effect. Since he didn't leave behind any aura, he must have discovered our presence and used some sort of concealment technique. That's probably the case. Should we split up or go in together? The Dark Moon ruler had been using his divine sense to scan his surroundings this entire time. As he looked around, he asked for the Hegemon's opinion. Since we've already done it, we can't give him any chance to turn the tables. The Sovereign Lord looked around and said, what we need to do is set up a seal on the door that he can't break. Then, we can slowly push into the temple. All right. This time, he won't be able to escape. The All Heaven ruler smiled wretchedly and set up a ruler-level formation at the entrance. Then, the three of them began a carpet search. From the entrance, they searched the depths of the temple bit by bit, not missing a single spot. Lord Night Sorrow, if they keep searching like this, they'll catch up to us sooner or later. What should we do? 3 God Kings, there's no way they're a match for 3 Hegemons. While the 3 rulers were searching, the Dragon Sparrow King said worriedly from within the Clear Sky Pagoda. Night Sorrow was currently hiding in the depths of the Nine Skies Temple, using the projection of the formation to observe the movements of the 3 rulers. To be honest, I sensed danger, but I didn't cancel the plan. Naturally, I have something to rely on. Night Sorrow explained to the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King, I have divine talismans left behind by Ruler Tianai and Ruler Voiceless. As long as I crush them, they'll be able to sense it. Now that I've already crushed them, we just have to hold on for a while longer in the temple and they'll catch up. Going from Ruler Tianai and Lord Voiceless area to the Sovereign Lord's area wasn't too far for the 2 rulers. They should arrive soon. Night Sorrow judged that as long as the 2 of them arrived, today's crisis would be easily resolved. So, we still have those 2 backing us up. Upon hearing Night Sorrow's words, the Dragon Sparrow King relaxed and asked, are we going to keep going in or what? Keep going in. Let's get the things left behind by Sect Master Shao Tianxian first. Night Sorrow said before continuing, Dragon Sparrow King, give me a few speed talismans you refined. Okay. I have 3 more here. Lord Night Sorrow, take them all. The Dragon Sparrow King handed over the jade talismans he had refined and then looked at the Fire Phoenix King. Fire Phoenix King, aren't you also able to refine special talismans? Why haven't I seen you do it? The 7 rulers chosen by the ancestor Phoenix could each refine a talisman they were good at. The Dragon Sparrow King was good at refining speed talismans that could triple one's speed. My special ability is to refine Nirvana Rebirth talismans. However, the consumption is relatively large and it will take me millions of years to recover. Unless it's absolutely necessary, I don't want to refine them. The Fire Phoenix King revealed her special ability while shaking her head. Every time she refined a Nirvana Rebirth talisman, she would use up 90% of her blood and sweat. It would take her many years to recover. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, she absolutely wouldn't refine them. This ability of yours is really amazing. In comparison, mine is absolutely insignificant. The Dragon Sparrow King smiled. Just from the name of the talisman refined by the Fire Phoenix King, one could tell that it could revive people. It's best not to use the Fire Phoenix King's special ability if you can. Chapter 2850. Yes. Unless it's to save myself or someone important, I won't use it. The Fire Phoenix King replied seriously. She told Night Sorrow and the Dragon Sparrow King that she wouldn't use this move casually and that they shouldn't treat it as a normal skill. That's what I think too. Night Sorrow replied. As he observed his surroundings, he said, our main goal is to enter the depths and find what Xiao Tianxian left behind. The 2 of you, stay in the Clear Sky Pagoda for now. I might need your help later. All right. We should be prepared to take action at any time. The Dragon Sparrow King glanced at the Fire Phoenix King, and the 2 nodded at the same time. The 2 of them had high hopes for Night Sorrow. The potential he had displayed was definitely stronger than some of the sovereigns. The Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King had already discussed in private. After entering the Eternal Paragon domain and meeting the Ancestor Phoenix, they would continue to follow Night Sorrow and grow together. After all, the 2 of them couldn't possibly hug the Ancestor Phoenix's thigh after entering the Eternal Paragon domain. Growing together with Night Sorrow was a shortcut for them to become sovereigns. Let's go. After summoning Cao Ling, Night Sorrow took the Clear Sky Pagoda and quickly flew through the 9 Heavens Shrine. He headed toward the depths of the shrine. Along the way, Night Sorrow had been using concealment runes and hadn't left any traces behind. However, when he encountered some strange beasts or puppets in the 9 Heavens Shrine, he had been forced to leave behind some traces. And these traces were clues for the 3 sovereigns chasing after him. Sure enough, the net of heaven grinds slowly but surely. He still left some traces behind. The sovereigns, who had been chasing after Night Sorrow, smiled in satisfaction when they saw the traces left behind in the void. At that moment, the Dark Moon ruler said, we're getting closer and closer. We have to be careful. After all, a sovereign has fallen here before. Don't worry, we're all paying attention. The illustrious ruler wasn't pleased with the cautious ruler of the Dark Moon. She responded coldly, then continued in the direction Night Sorrow had gone with the other 2. Meanwhile, Night Sorrow had already arrived at the entrance of the 9 Heavens Shrine's inner hall. Big brother Night Sorrow, there's something good inside. Cao Ling said excitedly as they approached the inner hall. She was very sensitive to treasures, so she was very happy. Good, it seems we found the right place. However, why did Sect Master Xiao Tianxian insist on leaving it here? I'm afraid there's a deeper reason. Although Night Sorrow had encountered some resistance and broken a few arrays, they weren't a threat to him. He couldn't understand why Sect Master Xiao Tianxian had placed the treasure here. Big brother Night, go. Ling didn't sense any danger, so it should be safe. Cao Ling asked when she saw that Night Sorrow hadn't moved from the entrance. Let's go. Let's go. Night Sorrow still didn't understand Xiao Tianxuan's intentions, but he still walked into the inner hall. At this moment, the inner hall was completely peaceful. There was no danger at all. On an altar in the inner hall, there was a package. Night Sorrow took the package and saw the recipe for the Heavenly 1,000,000 Transformations pill, as well as some other ingredients. These ingredients had obviously been used up a lot and had been left behind. It seems that sect master Shao Tianxian became a ruler in this place back then. Most likely, he had chosen to ascend after becoming a sovereign. That's why he left it here. But according to legend, the Nine Heavens Shrine is extremely dangerous. Why don't I see any danger today? After obtaining the Heavenly 1,000,000 Transformations pill and some other ingredients, Night Sorrow continued to observe the inner hall. At this moment, he suddenly had a thought. Not good. At this moment, Sovereign Illustrious, Sovereign Dark Moon, and Sovereign All Heaven had already caught up. Night Sorrow had already sensed their presence. He put Cao Ling into the Clear Heaven Pagoda and sent a voice transmission to Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King. Not good. They're here. Sovereign Illustrious, Sovereign Dark Moon, and Sovereign All Heaven. I wonder if there are others. What? The three sovereigns have caught up. What do we do? There's no way out here. Hearing this, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King both sucked in a cold breath. Dragon Sparrow King shouted. No matter how strong the three of them were, they couldn't be a match for the three sovereigns. As for Sovereign Tianai and Sovereign Voiceless, they definitely wouldn't arrive so soon. Yeah. The inner hall is only so big. We have nowhere to run. Fire Phoenix King's tone was full of worry. Although she was talented, she didn't think she had the ability to fight a sovereign. After all, in the divine realm, the sovereigns were the true masters. No, the road. There's still a way. The altar in front of us is the way. Night Sorrow took out a large number of divinity crystals and other things from his spatial artifact. He discovered that the altar in front of him was not only an altar but also a teleportation array. However, he didn't know where it could teleport to. The three sovereigns were close and would arrive soon. Night Sorrow didn't have time to think about where the altar would lead. He directly activated the altar and teleported over with the Clear Heaven Pagoda. Buzz! There was a loud rumble. While feeling dizzy, Yishan appeared in a forest of towering ancient trees. They appeared in a 7-colored altar. Night Sorrow didn't have time to observe his surroundings before he took out the Tianyun bow and destroyed the altar. Although this might cause them to not be able to find the way out, it could prevent the three sovereigns from appearing here. Phew. We're safe for now, but we don't know where we are. The Nine Heaven Divine Hall was unexpectedly safe. There was no danger at all. This was definitely abnormal. Appearing here at this time, Night Sorrow felt even more strange. Hence, he released his divine soul power and confidently investigated the surrounding environment. With this investigation, Night Sorrow was immediately shocked. This place was actually full of the aura of dark creatures. And the feeling that it gave Night Sorrow was very similar to the Dark Abyss's sovereign creature that he had encountered before. Could this be the Dark Abyss? Night Sorrow, who was investigating, sighed. At the same time, he summoned Cao Ling, and said, Ling, see if you can sense anything. There doesn't seem to be any aura of treasures here. Furthermore, the aura is very evil. As Cao Ling spoke, she was somewhat trembling. Clearly, the aura here made her feel very uncomfortable. Sorry, I forgot about the soul-devouring wind. Putting Cao Ling into the Clear Heaven Pagoda again, Night Sorrow immediately apologized. Chapter 28:51. Even the sun in the sky was black and emitted a dark light. However, there were almost no dark creatures nearby, so the teleportation formation had not been destroyed. Now that it had been destroyed by Night Sorrow, he had to think of a new way to leave the dark abyss. Sigh. This is really bad luck. We've just left the dragon's den and entered the tiger's den. After Night Sorrow told him about the dark abyss, the Dragon Sparrow King in the Clear Sky Pagoda sighed helplessly. At this time, the Fire Phoenix King asked Night Sorrow, Lord Night Sorrow, can you obtain merit power by killing dark creatures? Yes. If I can kill a few dark divine king consecutively, I can indeed become a divine king very quickly. However, we've appeared in the dark abyss, and who knows how many dominator rank dark creatures there are. If we kill one or two divine king, I'm afraid we'll be hunted down by a few dominators. Night Sorrow said. Although the dark abyss was not as terrifying as the ethereal mountain, there was definitely more than one dominator. If I'm not wrong, the 3 dominators behind us should have followed us, right? Can we think of a way to make use of them? The Fire Phoenix King in the clear sky pagoda thought of the dominators and said. Hearing this, Night Sorrow nodded and said, it's possible. However, it's not much different from dancing on the edge of a knife. We have to be careful. Lord Night Sorrow, what do you plan to do? The 2 of us will do our best to cooperate. Although the Dragon Sparrow King was a little afraid, he did not retreat. He knew that in such an environment, cowardice was useless. Okay. Let's observe the surroundings first. If there's a teleportation formation, then record the location. We'll kill a few before leaving. Since we're here, we can't leave empty-handed. If we can't find the teleportation formation, then we'll have to keep a low profile. We'll kill a few dark divine king without anyone knowing so that I can become a divine king. After Night Sorrow explained, he said confidently, if I can advance to divine king, there's a high chance that I'll be able to fight against juggernauts. For others, entering the dark abyss was a complete tragedy. But for Night Sorrow, although coming here was dangerous, it was also accompanied by a huge opportunity. At this moment, he finally understood what Xiao Tianxian was planning. He was definitely using the dark abyss to force out his potential and quickly evolve into the divine king. Lord Night Sorrow, are you going to act alone or with the 2 of us? The Dragon Sparrow King knew that Night Sorrow wasn't bragging. He also hoped that Night Sorrow could quickly break through to become a divine king. The 2 of you stay in the dense forest in front of us and check if there are any teleportation formations in the surroundings. If you encounter the 3 hegemons, don't fight back. Just surrender. If they ask me anything, just answer them truthfully. Night Sorrow looked at the surroundings. This was where the soul-devouring wind was the weakest. There were no dark creatures at all. It was safest for the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King to stay here. The only danger they faced was that they might encounter the 3 hegemons. At this moment, the Fire Phoenix King asked doubtfully, Lord Night Sorrow, are you preparing to leave the dark forest to find a target to kill? Yes. I'll try to advance to the Divine King before the Dark Abyss hegemons can react. As for the 2 of you, if you find a teleportation formation, pay attention to setting up a concealment formation and wait for me nearby. After Night Sorrow finished speaking, he walked out of the forest to find a target. The Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King searched side by side for a teleportation formation. This matter was more important than Night Sorrow's advancement to the Divine King. The 2 of them searched very carefully. As for Night Sorrow, after walking out of the dark forest, he immediately saw a large lake in front of him. This broken amber lake was very large, but the lake water was pure black. Using the sea serpent's eye, Night Sorrow's expression changed. He saw the skeletons of thousands of cultivators by the lake. These skeletons no longer had any flesh on them. Clearly, they had been here for many years. Although he didn't know how they died, Night Sorrow guessed that they must have been captured and brought to the dark abyss. They must have been very miserable. There are dark creatures in the lake. They seem to be a race. Yi Shang used his soul power to scan the entire lake. He discovered that there were tens of thousands of dark creatures in the lake. These dark creatures looked similar to cultivators, but they were all formed by dark energy. Every one of them looked dark. At the bottom of the lake, there were many caves. They were distributed among them and were basically cultivating. In the entire race, there was a divine king, 6 divine lords, and 10 million exalted gods. As for the feather god, there was almost no one. The cultivators outside should have been killed by you and eaten by you, right? Next, I'll avenge them. There were no other races within 10 million miles. Before Night Sorrow attacked, he set up a Divine King-level trap formation on the surface of the lake. Then, he dived to the bottom of the lake, found the Divine King's position, and attacked him directly. This time, he didn't use the Tianyun bow at all. He used the Samsara halberd and the Nine Heavens reincarnation spear to kill him directly. After absorbing the power of virtue brought by the godly monarch, Night Sorrow used the law of speech to kill all the cultivators who weren't godly monarchs and convert them into power of virtue. As for the 6 divine lords, after discovering Night Sorrow's strength, they fled separately. However, they were all blocked by the trap formation and couldn't escape at all. After absorbing all the power of merit they converted, Night Sorrow's power of merit was very close to the level of the Divine King. However, there was still a long way to go before he could really break through that barrier. He absorbed all the useful things at the bottom of the lake and continued to rush to the next destination. This time, there was only one Divine King in the race. He was suddenly attacked and didn't even have time to send out a signal for help. It didn't affect Night Sorrow's following actions at all. Soon, Night Sorrow arrived in front of a huge beehive. This beehive looked like a planet and seemed to be connected to the sky and the earth. In the beehive lived the dark magic bee race. After using the power of his divine soul to check, Night Sorrow confirmed that there were 4 divine kings in the beehive. He was instantly energized. He thought to himself, as long as I absorb the power of merit converted by these 4 divine kings and the dark magic bees, I'll probably advance my power of merit to the level of the Divine King. In that case, I can find a place to break through the level of the Divine King in peace. Thinking of this, Night Sorrow immediately moved towards the beehive. Compared to the big lake just now, there were more cultivators' corpses near the beehive, and they looked more miserable. Chapter 2852. This time, Night Sorrow was discovered by the patrolling dark demon bees as soon as he appeared. He did not have time to set up any arrays. Compared to the other races in the lake, the dark demon bees were much more alert. Looks like this time, will definitely alarm some even more powerful existences. Let's kill. I will try to raise my power of merit to the level of the Divine King. The moment Night Sorrow was discovered, he knew that the overlords of the Dark Abyss would know about it, regardless of whether this battle went well or not. He did not think too much and charged towards the dark beehive. How dare a Sir God from the deity world be so arrogant to come to the Dark Abyss to die? You are the first one in 10,000 years. After Night Sorrow appeared, the 4 leaders of the dark demon bees gathered together and surrounded Night Sorrow with a large number of dark demon bees. For divine kings, more than 20 Sir Gods, and hundreds of millions of high gods and feather gods were behind them. Such a lineup was the strongest in the Dark Abyss, except for the tribes that had given birth to the overlords. The leader of the dark demon wasps snorted disdainfully as he faced Night Sorrow, who had come alone. A Sir God from the deity world is enough to deal with your army. Yi Shang replied coldly. At the same time, a strong fighting spirit rose from his body. An ordinary Sir God would have run away in the face of such a large army of dark demon bees. However, Night Sorrow would not do so. To him, the Divine King was not much of a threat. Especially the Divine King, who was among the dark creatures, would be affected by the power of merit and would be severely restrained. Enough to deal with the army of dark demon bees? What an arrogant tone. Who's going to fight it? The leader of the dark demon bees had wanted his subordinates to charge at Night Sorrow and kill him instantly. However, he was infuriated and changed his mind. Leader, I will go and kill him. The number 1 Sir God of the dark demon bees immediately turned into a human and knelt before the leader. All right. Wen Yuan, go and kill this arrogant fellow. Don't kill him. It's rare for a cultivator from the god world to appear in the Dark Abyss. Capture him alive and we'll torture him, just like we did in the past. Yes. Great leader. Wen Yuan responded. He stared at Yi Shang with an evil gaze and said gloomily, if I were you, I would surrender. If I were you, I would surrender. Night Sorrow sneered at Wasp Abyss' arrogance. However, if he put himself in Wasp Abyss's shoes, he would have the same thoughts as Wasp Abyss. After all, everyone knew that the Divine Lord was weaker than the Divine King. How dare you! Wasp Abyss was infuriated by Night Sorrow's rebuke. Wielding his wasp-tail needle sword, he attacked Night Sorrow. This method is somewhat familiar. I'll give you a dignified death. Seeing Wasp Abyss's wasp-tail needle sword, Night Sorrow immediately recalled the battle. At that time, he had used the Wasp King's wasp-tail needle sword to great effect. Now that he was attacking Wasp Abyss, he would kill him with the Samsara halberd. Turning it into virtuous energy was considered giving him a dignified death. What? He's so strong. This is the Divine King's strength. I'll deal with him. The fourth leader of the Dark Demon Bees saw that Night Sorrow had killed the strongest Divine King in a single strike. He immediately took out his divine weapon and attacked. His divine weapon was not the wasp-tail needle sword, but a long sword that he had taken from a cultivator from the god world. This long sword was a king-grade divine weapon. It was of good quality, but it had suffered considerable damage. Long sword of the god world, I'll take you back. Seeing the divine king's weapon in the hands of the Dark Demon Bees, Night Sorrow immediately roared. You want to take away this king's divine weapon and return to the god world? Dream on. But you won't stand a chance. Wasp Tribulation, the fourth leader of the Dark Demon Bees, saw that Night Sorrow was interested in his divine weapon and immediately attacked. Although he was a Dark Demon Bee, he was very proficient in using sword techniques after taking human form. His attack was very powerful. It's a bit like drawing a tiger from a cat, but it's not enough. Forbidden Spear. Facing Wasp Tribulation's attack, Night Sorrow could clearly feel that he was stronger than the Divine Emperor, but only as strong as the lower Divine King. He was no threat to him at all. After Night Sorrow used the Samsara halberd to attack with the Forbidden Spear, the fourth leader of the Dark Demon Bees had yet to react. Wasp King, the leader of the Dark Demon Bees, turned pale and said, "Attack together and kill him. Also, send someone to inform ruler Emosia." After saying that, he, the second leader, and the third leader attacked Night Sorrow together. However, they were still a step too slow and did not stop Night Sorrow. Wasp Tribulation, the fourth leader, was still killed by Night Sorrow's spear. As for the Divine Emperor's divine weapon, it let out a mournful cry after Night Sorrow obtained it. Go and have a good rest. I'll bring you back. Night Sorrow used his hand to caress the sword and used the power of virtue to purify the evil aura on it. Then, he kept it in the Clear Heaven Pagoda. The sword that was kept in the Clear Heaven Pagoda realized that it had been purified and let out a long cry. At this moment, Night Sorrow realized that the leader of the Dark Demon Bees had sent a Divine Emperor to report. He immediately locked onto his aura and started fighting with the Dark Demon Bees. He was prepared to get rid of the Dark Demon Bees in front of him and use the Horn Race's secret technique to chase after the Divine Emperor. They're finally attacking together. It's time for me to use some powerful techniques. Night Sorrow did not want the battle to drag on for too long. He immediately used his verbal execution ability to kill all the Dark Demon Bees below the Divine Emperor level. Then, he took out Tian Yun Bao and let little Tian, who had already advanced to the level of the Divine King, control Tian Yun Bao to fight with him. With Tian Yun Bao's cooperation and the Nine Heavens Reincarnation Spear, Night Sorrow quickly killed all the remaining Divine King and Divine Emperors in the Dark Demon Bees. After absorbing the power of virtue converted from the Dark Demon Bees and destroying the Dark Beehive, Night Sorrow's power of virtue directly advanced to the level of the Divine King. With the qualitative change of the Divine King's level, Night Sorrow immediately felt that he was dozens of times stronger. As long as I increase my cultivation to the level of the Divine King, I'll have the ability to protect myself in front of a dominator. After killing the Divine Emperor that the Dark Demon Bees sent to report, I'll return to the forest area. After Night Sorrow destroyed the Dark Beehive, he slightly felt the change in his power of virtue and activated his secret technique to chase after the divine emperor of the Dark Beehive. However, after chasing for less than an hour, Night Sorrow realized that something was wrong. He clearly felt that he had entered the territory of the Dark Master. Continue chasing, or turn back immediately. After entering the territory of the Dark Master, Night Sorrow immediately sensed his aura. At this moment, he was very close to the Divine Emperor of the Dark Beehive. Chapter 28:53. Hopefully, the concealment rune will be of some use. Night Sorrow stopped and thought for a moment. He was certain that it was impossible for him not to chase after him. If the Dark Demon be Divine Lord in front of him reported this to the Dominator-level Dark creatures, then he would be trapped in the Dark Abyss. That would be too dangerous. Luckily, your speed isn't that fast. You didn't use a teleportation formation. Or a voice transmission stone. After making up his mind, Night Sorrow set up some concealment runes on himself and activated the Treistrimsa Battle Mystic technique. He raised his strength to the peak and used the dragon roaming heaven steps to chase after him. As he went deeper, the aura of the Dark Dominator became stronger and stronger. He also became more and more nervous. However, at this time, the Divine Lord of the Bee Clan who was sending a message to the Dark Dominator could already see him with the Sea Serpent's eye. At this moment, Night Sorrow's pupils suddenly shrank. Because he saw another Dark Race Divine Lord appear opposite the Divine Lord of the Bee Clan. The two of them were about to encounter each other. Time to act. Seeing the two Dark Race Divine Lords encounter each other, the Divine Lord of the Bee Clan began to explain Night Sorrow's attack. Night Sorrow immediately used the Merit Dragonlock formation from afar and sealed the two Divine Lords in a sealed space. Before they could react, he inserted the Samsara Halberd into it. The two Dark God Lords weren't weak among ordinary Divine Lords. However, they paled in comparison to Night Sorrow. There was no comparison at all. They were both penetrated by the Samsara Halberd. Luckily, I acted in time and didn't expose myself. After successfully killing the two Divine Lords, Night Sorrow immediately felt relieved. However, when Night Sorrow collected the two corpses, he was shocked to find that the Divine Lord who came later was holding a crushed voice transmission stone. In an instant, Night Sorrow's expression changed. Oh no. I don't know how far he's gone. From the looks of it, escape is the best strategy. Night Sorrow knew that he couldn't stay here for long. He immediately turned around and rushed toward the periphery of the Dominator's territory. As he didn't go too far into the Dominator's territory, he quickly escaped from the Dominator's territory. If I didn't hear wrongly, that hegemon should be called hegemon Moxie, right? After escaping, Night Sorrow immediately heard a loud roar coming from Moc's territory. Divine King, listen up. Follow me and search for the cultivators of the Divine Realm. Above the Divine King? This meant that hegemon Moxie knew how strong I was. Doesn't that mean that basically everything has been exposed? Upon hearing hegemon Moxie's roar, Night Sorrow immediately sped up, heading back in the direction he had come from in search of King Dragonsparrow and King Flamingo. After entering the towering forest, he immediately transmitted his voice to the two of them and asked about their harvest. Before Night Sorrow left, he had asked the two of them to look for a teleportation circle that could be used to leave. He wondered if they had found anything. Lord Night Sorrow. We didn't find any teleportation arrays, but we did find a very strange underground palace. After Night Sorrow spoke to the voice transmission stone, Dragon Sparrow King's voice immediately came through. His tone was slightly excited. Night Sorrow could hear his excitement and asked doubtfully, "What kind of underground palace is it? Are there a lot of treasures inside?" He remembered that Cao Ling hadn't sensed any treasures nearby. There are a lot of cultivation resources inside. No, not a lot, but a huge amount. Cultivation resources. Dragon Sparrow King said excitedly. It's not a trick, is it? As Night Sorrow asked doubtfully, he chased after the two of them. In the Dark Abyss, there was a large amount of cultivation resources. Anyone would find it strange if they heard about it. At first, the two of us didn't believe it either, but reality has proven that this is indeed a real cultivation resource. At this moment, King Flamingo's voice also came through. Hearing this, Knight Sorrow first felt that this matter was even more reliable. However, he soon realized that something was wrong. Although there was nothing wrong with their words, it was obvious that they were a little too excited. Both of them were at the peak of the Upper Divine King, and they didn't need many resources. What they needed more was a large amount of sovereign laws. They wouldn't be so excited just because they found some cultivation resources. Not good. The two of them might have been captured by the three sovereigns behind them. I can't walk into the trap. Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King's words didn't seem wrong on the surface, but when combined with the situation, Knight Sorrow immediately realized that something was wrong. He knew that Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King had said such things because they had no choice. Moreover, their words had obviously been modified. The three sovereigns couldn't hear anything wrong, but Knight Sorrow felt that it was completely different. I'll think of a way to save you. It was very difficult to save Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King, but Knight Sorrow didn't want to give up. After all, the two of them were brought out by him, and now they were helping him. Although that was what he thought, Knight Sorrow knew that he couldn't say such words out loud. He couldn't even hint at them. He pretended not to know what was going on and replied, "Wait for me, I'll follow the clues and rush over." "Good. We'll wait for you. When you arrive, your cultivation will soon reach the Divine King level." Dragon Sparrow King's voice soon arrived. In truth, it was the Dark Moon ruler who had thought of this line. Dragon Sparrow King still felt very uncomfortable after saying it out loud. He wasn't sure if Knight Sorrow had figured out the strangeness of the situation. This forest didn't even have dark races, so it was definitely lacking in resources. How could there be an underground palace? Very good. Let's set up an illusion and trap array. That little bastard is very alert, we can't let him discover any clues. The All-Heaven ruler and Knight Sorrow had talked to each other quite a bit, so they knew that he had many tricks up his sleeve. He immediately had the illustrious ruler and the Dark Moon ruler cooperate with him to set up the array. I don't know if Lord Yisheng will fall for it. Fire Phoenix King thought worriedly after seeing the three rulers' reactions. She and Dragon Sparrow King were in despair when facing these three peerless experts. They also knew that Knight Sorrow was no match for the three of them. The gap between a ruler and a divine lord was an insurmountable gap. Sigh. Dragon Sparrow King sighed when he saw the expression on Fire Phoenix King's face. With the three rulers watching, they had no intention of escaping or sending a voice transmission to Knight Sorrow. They knew that it would be impossible. They could only pray secretly. At this time, Knight Sorrow arrived at the teleportation array where the three of them had appeared. This array had been completely destroyed and couldn't be used at all. There was no chance of repairing it. It seems that the three rulers must have come to this forest through other teleportation arrays. That means that everyone has a chance to leave the dark abyss. Chapter 2854. Normally, it was impossible to save the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King from the three juggernauts. Knight Sorrow, in particular, was too weak to have a fair conversation with Juggernaut's Juggernaut, Dark Moon Juggernaut, and All-Heaven Juggernaut. Moreover, Juggernaut Tianai and Juggernaut Voiceless might not be able to track him to the dark abyss. Knight Sorrow's only advantage was that he was in the dark. The only thing I can use is that teleportation array. If I can lure the three juggernauts away and threaten them with the teleportation array, it might be useful. Knight Sorrow, who had set up a concealment array for himself, felt that there were very few things he could use. One of them was to take a risk and lure the Dark Juggernaut into a clash with the three juggernauts. As long as they encountered each other, there would definitely be a great battle, and no one knew how things would develop. At that time, he might have a chance to find a solution. However, using a divine lord's cultivation to lure Juggernaut Mos was an act of suicide. For now, he had to be fast and lure the divine king from Lord Mos's territory to the three juggernauts. As long as they fought, the Dark Abyss Juggernaut might discover the three juggernauts. The three juggernauts were guarding the exit. As long as no juggernauts appeared in the Dark Abyss, they probably wouldn't escape quickly. There should be quite a lot of chaos. Yes. If I take a risk, should be able to reap some benefits. Night Sorrow immediately left the dark forest to search for his target. His luck wasn't bad, and he soon saw two divine kings of darkness walking side by side. These two divine kings of darkness stood side by side on a flying shuttle, constantly using their divine sense to search for Night Sorrow's figure. They really get what they want. Seeing the two's movements, Yishan immediately pretended to be recuperating below and released a trace of his aura. This aura was very weak. If one didn't look carefully, they definitely wouldn't be able to discover it. However, the two divine kings of darkness standing on the flying shuttle were carefully searching for Night Sorrow's figure. Now that he had exposed such a big flaw, it was natural that he would be discovered. Below? He's recuperating underground. He must have suffered some serious injuries. Upon discovering Night Sorrow's aura, the eyes of the two divine kings of darkness lit up. After reporting this to Juggernaut Mos, they looked at each other's view. Just a few thousand kilometers, Night Sorrow's direction, controlled his speed, and fled direction. You want to escape? Do you think you can escape? Chase. 1-1 Juggernauts immediately, the gods. Another dark deity king warned, be careful, the cultivators of the celestial realm are extremely cunning. God. Juggernaut, how God is God. 1-1s, he, to, SSSS, if he's to. God. If we can take him down, it will definitely be a great achievement. It's just that I don't know how many people have come from the God realm this time. As the other dark divine king spoke, he shouted, the shuttle doesn't seem to be able to catch up to him. Let's think of something else. Don't lose him. Don't worry. This king's shuttle hasn't been fully activated yet. The dark divine king, who was controlling the shuttle, immediately dripped a drop of dark blood on the shuttle to activate it. After being activated, the speed of the flying shuttle increased by a lot. It was getting closer and closer to Night Sorrow. It's all right. It's just as I expected. I was really worried that you wouldn't be able to catch up. Night Sorrow chuckled when he saw that the two god kings of darkness were getting closer and closer with his spiritual energy. If he simply sped up, the other party wouldn't be able to catch up. That would be too awkward. After the two dark divine kings sped up for a while, Night Sorrow discovered that he wasn't far from the Fire Phoenix King and Dragon Phoenix King controlled by the three sovereigns. He immediately used the concealment array to hide again. What's going on? We actually lost him. The Dark Divine King, who was controlling the shuttle, had originally made a solemn vow. But just as he spoke, Night Sorrow had shaken him off, and he immediately felt extremely displeased. The other Dark Divine King comforted, I'm guessing that he's definitely lacking in vitality and can't escape from the shuttle. Thus, he's trying to find a way to hide nearby. As long as we carefully search the area, we should be able to find him. At worst, we can just summon the Lord Ruler. This is already the end of the abyss. There shouldn't be any place for him to escape. What you say makes sense. But let's not summon the Lord Ruler for now. We'll try to capture him ourselves. The Dark Divine King, who had been controlling the shuttle, put it away. Then, he and the other Divine King began to search for Night Sorrow's whereabouts. However, Night Sorrow had hidden himself extremely well with the concealment array. They simply couldn't find any clues. As they searched, they approached the area where the three sovereigns were. At this moment, the three sovereigns knew that they were in the dark abyss. They had no intention of wandering around alone. They didn't want to encounter the sovereigns of the dark abyss. They were waiting for Night Sorrow. After waiting for a long time, Night Sorrow didn't appear at all. The Dark Moon ruler immediately berated the Fire Phoenix King. Ask him why he hasn't appeared yet. If you can't get the answer you want, I don't mind enjoying your beauty. Bastard. The Fire Phoenix King immediately glared at the Dark Moon ruler's threat. The Dragon Sparrow King, who knew the Fire Phoenix King's unyielding character, immediately said, I'll ask. I'll ask. My lords, don't be anxious. Hurry up and ask. Don't use any code words. The Dark Moon ruler glanced at the Dragon Sparrow King and immediately berated him. All right. I'll ask. The Dragon Sparrow King replied with a smile. Then, he spoke to the voice transmission stone. Lord Night Sorrow, where are you now? Did you encounter something? Although his words were simple, they were already reminding Night Sorrow of what to say. The Dark Moon ruler glared at him, but after pondering for a moment, he felt that there was nothing wrong with what he said. After a while, Night Sorrow, who had roughly guessed the Dragon Sparrow King's intentions, replied, The creatures of the dark abyss have already appeared in the forest. They discovered me. Right now, I'm hiding underground not far from you. Where exactly are you? We'll go pick you up. The Dragon Sparrow King said according to the Dark Moon ruler's instructions. When he said this, the Dragon Sparrow King felt somewhat apologetic. The Fire Phoenix King coldly snorted, feeling that he was too spineless. At this juncture, he was still cooperating with the other party. However, all of this was within Night Sorrow's calculations. Chapter 2855. A large number of Divine King of Darkness? Does that mean Lord Night Sorrow has alarmed the ruler of the Dark Abyss? After Night Sorrow spoke, the Dark Moon ruler immediately asked Dragon Sparrow King. Right now, he was worried that Night Sorrow would be captured by the Divine King of the Dark Abyss or the ruler of the Dark Abyss. If he was intercepted and captured, the two sovereign artifacts would fall into the wrong hands. Things weren't as simple as he and the other two sovereigns thought. While Dragon Sparrow King asked Night Sorrow, the Dark Moon ruler looked at the other two and said, Let's hurry over and capture Night Sorrow without alerting the ruler of the Dark Abyss. What do you think? There's no rush. Let's wait and see what Night Sorrow has to say. As the Overlord of all heaven replied, his gaze locked onto the voice transmission stone. He wanted to get some clues from Night Sorrow's words. Don't believe everything he says. The Overlord's voice was filled with suspicion. He felt that Night Sorrow's words were baiting them into doing something. I've encountered two Divine King and they're fighting. You two hide yourselves and wait for me to escape. I'll meet up with you too. As the three sovereigns watched, Night Sorrow's voice finally rang out. Then, in the distant void, a deafening sound could be heard. They're really fighting. Should we go over? The Divine King of all heaven immediately lost his composure when he saw the commotion in the distance. His thirst for the sovereign artifact was so great that he could barely control himself. The Overlord said, Going isn't a problem. The problem is who goes and who doesn't. The three of us will go together. The Overlord of all heaven said. There were three sovereigns present, but there were only two sovereign artifacts. None of them wanted to stay behind to guard the teleportation formation. After all, their alliance was as fragile as paper. Whoever obtained the sovereign artifacts first would have the upper hand. Although the mighty Hegemon had said that he didn't want the sovereign artifact and only wanted to kill Hegemon Night Sorrow and Hegemon Voiceless, if the sovereign artifact fell into the hands of all heaven and Dark Moon first, who knew what the two of them would do? Thus, even he didn't want to stay behind to guard the teleportation formation. After thinking for a moment, he said, The three of us will set up a formation nearby. Then we'll go together. That's the only way. The Dark Moon ruler knew that the other two were thinking the same thing as him, and so he didn't say anything. He immediately set up the formation. The Overlord of all heaven also set up a formation. The Overlord was the last one to act. After she finished setting up the array pattern, the three of them looked at each other and chased after the source of the tremor. Overlord's overlord of all heaven didn't notice the overlord of all heaven. At the same time, the hegemon collected the dragon sparrow king and the flame phoenix king into his grotto heaven. At this moment, the dark moon ruler spoke out. Shouldn't we have let the two of them remain silent? You won't speak again? Good. The overlord of all heaven smiled. Although he was a overlord, the thought of having a overlord artifact still excited him. However, he was already prepared to act. He was also prepared to guard against any sneak attacks from the other two overlords. No one could remain calm in front of a overlord artifact. Although the overlord of all heaven said that he didn't want it, no one would believe him. There are creatures of darkness ahead. Night Sorrow's aura is also there. The three overlords were extremely fast. They quickly arrived at the scene of the incident. The Dark Moon Overlord sensed with his divine sense and came to this conclusion. The Overlord of all heaven frowned. That's not right. Night Sorrow's aura is a remnant. He's no longer nearby. Could it be that he was no match for the Divine King, so he fled? The Overlord of all heaven speculated. That's easy. Capture the Divine King of the Dark Abyss and interrogate him. After saying that, the Dark Moon ruler directly struck out at the two God Kings of Darkness, quickly restraining them. What? Overlords? 3 of them? Enemy attack. It's an enemy attack from the deity realm. The Dark Divine King, who had been controlling the flying shuttle, was terrified out of his wits when he was captured by the Dark Moon Overlord. The other Divine King wasn't much better off. It was true that the Dark Abyss had an overlord, but distant water couldn't put out a nearby fire. Now that the two of them were under the control of an overlord, their deaths were almost certain. You don't need to worry about whether or not it's an enemy attack. All you have to do is answer me properly. The Dark Moon Overlord grabbed one of the Divine Kings and used some sort of technique to separate them from each other and interrogate them separately. After asking, the two of them didn't know much about Yi Shang's situation. However, they did tell him all about the overlords of the Dark Abyss. It turned out that there were 5 overlords of darkness in the Dark Abyss. One of them was even as strong as Overlord Tianai. It seems that we have to be careful. However, the closest one is Overlord Moxie. He's not much of a threat. We don't need to fear him. When Overlord All Heaven heard that the strongest overlord of the Dark Abyss was as strong as Overlord Tianai, he immediately felt some fear and didn't want to alarm him. The Dark Moon Overlord had the same idea, but he didn't care too much about Overlord Moxie. Afterwards, the 3 overlords began to search for Night Sorrow's traces in the area around Overlord Moxie. As they searched, they encountered more and more dark creatures, but they still didn't find Night Sorrow. This was because Night Sorrow had already arrived at the teleportation array. Night Sorrow couldn't tell that the 3 overlords had set up the teleportation array, but he knew that they wouldn't be so careless. Thus, he didn't act rashly. He patiently observed his surroundings. Suddenly, a thought occurred to him. Night Sorrow discovered that he could set up a heaven and earth concealment array in his surroundings. If I set it up, even the 3 overlords won't be able to find it. However, if I use up the materials, it'll be too difficult to gather another set. Although he discovered that he could set up a heaven-defying heaven and earth concealment array, Night Sorrow hesitated. If he set up the array here, it would be extremely difficult to gather enough materials to set up a heaven and earth concealment array for the immortal domain. After all, once he became the Divine King, he would work hard to create a clone and then head to the eternal sovereign world. However, once I set up this array, it'll be extremely easy to travel from the divine world to the Dark Abyss. It'll be extremely difficult to travel from the Dark Abyss to the divine world. I shouldn't have only cared about my family and not everyone. Chapter 2856. If he ran out of materials, he could accumulate more. However, opportunities were fleeting. If he didn't seize the opportunity, it would be impossible to rescue the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King and leave the Dark Abyss. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and felt that if he set up the heaven and earth concealment array and hid the teleportation formation within his own array, he would have complete control of the situation. He wouldn't have to worry about the three sovereigns chasing after him not giving up. Unless they wanted to fight the various sovereigns of the dark abyss. However, that was obviously impossible. Night Sorrow knew that the Dark Moon ruler, the All-Heaven ruler, and the illustrious ruler didn't have such courage. They only cared about their own interests. They wouldn't fight the sovereigns of the dark abyss under such circumstances. Heaven and Earth Concealment Array, activate. After deciding to set up the array, Night Sorrow immediately got to work. Very quickly, he activated the power of Heaven and Earth within 100,000 miles and set up the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array. After the array was set up, the area within 100,000 miles was completely under Night Sorrow's control. Under his control, the appearance of the area quickly changed. The forest was gone, replaced by a boundless ocean. Even the aura of the array set up by the three sovereigns had been sealed. Not good. The array's location has changed. I can no longer sense its existence. When Night Sorrow used the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array to conceal the aura of the three sovereigns, the illustrious ruler immediately realized that something was wrong. What? Could it be that we've been lured away? The Dark Moon ruler also realized what was going on. As for the All-Heaven ruler, when he realized what was going on, he immediately flew towards the teleportation formation. However, when he arrived near the formation, he was immediately stunned by the scene before him. The forest in his impression was gone, replaced by a vast ocean. It looked completely boundless. What's going on? The All-Heaven ruler almost went crazy when he saw the ocean in front of him. One of the miraculous effects of the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array was that it could hide the teleportation formation in the void and change the terrain at will. I'm afraid that Night Sorrow set up an extremely profound array here. Although the hegemon didn't panic, his expression was unsightly. All this while, she had never thought much of Night Sorrow. She felt that he was just a slightly more talented divine lord who could defeat some divine king. This was a legendary achievement in the god realm. But against a sovereign like her, it was no threat at all. But now, when she saw the landscape in front of her and used her spiritual energy to investigate, she instantly discovered that everything was different. She could no longer detect the existence of the teleportation formation. This meant that if the three of them wanted to leave the dark abyss, they had to go through Night Sorrow. They had completely fallen into a passive position. Damn it, we should have left one of us behind to guard the teleportation array. What should we do now? The Dark Moon ruler's face was dark and gloomy. The three of them had hoped to find Night Sorrow as soon as possible, but they hadn't imagined that they would fall for such a simple trick. This shouldn't have happened. But when he thought about it, under the circumstances at that time, who would be willing to stay here? It was Night Sorrow who knew exactly what they were thinking. What should we do? I think we should attack first before doing anything else. The Overlord of all heaven said irritably as he prepared to attack the ocean. By now, they had already killed two of Hegemon Moxie's subordinates, the Divine King. If they didn't respond, they would quickly be discovered. Once Hegemon Moxie discovered them, it would be the same as all five sovereigns of the Dark Abyss discovering them. If they still couldn't leave by then, the consequences would be unimaginable. It was very likely that all three of them would die in battle here. No, we can't attack. If you personally destroy the teleportation array, we'll lose our chance to leave. Although the Dark Moon ruler was similarly agitated, he didn't lose control. Instead, he shouted towards the boundless ocean, Night Sorrow, I know that you set up this array. Come out and talk. You three sovereigns really do think highly of me. You actually joined forces and chased me all the way here. Night Sorrow's figure slowly rose from the depths of the ocean to the surface. He stood atop the waves and stared at the three sovereigns. He didn't mention the Blazing Phoenix King and the Dragon Sparrow King, as that would put him in a passive position. Upon hearing Night Sorrow's words, the Overlord smiled indifferently. Night Sorrow, you are very outstanding. Against the three of us, even an ordinary divine king would feel despair. I admire you for being able to find a way to counterattack as a divine sovereign. Tell me, what will it take for us to leave the dark abyss through the teleportation array you control? The problem isn't what I want, but what you'll give me. If I didn't want you to bleed a little, I would have left long ago. Night Sorrow laughed coldly, tossing aside the blazing Phoenix King and the Dragon Sparrow King. These words made the Overlord, the Dark Moon ruler, and the Overlord of all heaven realize just how serious the situation was. The current situation was exactly as Night Sorrow had said. If he wanted to, he could leave at any time. As for the three of them, tragedy would definitely befall them. You can ask for it yourself. As long as you want it, as long as I can do it. The Overlord had a smile on his face. However, this smile looked like the smile of a greedy wolf. What do the two of you think? Night Sorrow didn't speak immediately. Instead, he looked at the Dark Moon ruler and the Overlord of all heaven. I think we should capture you first before we talk about anything else. While the Dark Moon ruler was deep in thought, the Overlord of all heaven made his move. After all, he had the strength of a ruler. In a flash, he appeared behind Night Sorrow and used his god domain to seal off all possible escape routes. At the same time, the Overlord of all heaven grabbed at Night Sorrow in an attempt to take him under his control. All heaven, I think you don't want to leave. After all heaven made his move, Night Sorrow didn't move at all. After all, he was just a shadow on the wave. After one of Luo Tian's shadows was destroyed, Yishang's figure once again appeared on another wave 10,000 meters away. He said coldly, I have two requests. As long as the Dark Moon ruler and Dark Moon ruler can fulfill them, I will agree to let you go. What requests? The Dark Moon ruler and Dark Moon ruler asked immediately. Although the two of them were usually high and mighty rulers, they were currently in a passive position. They didn't have the right to be arrogant, so their attitudes weren't bad. If the two of you kill all heaven, I will let you go. I won't pursue the matter of you trying to kill me and steal my treasures. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.